Greetings, everyone. Welcome to our session on Bruce Lee. And if you're new to the channel, you've never listened to any of these videos before, then you should keep in mind that we are doing a really, really deep study into the death of Bruce Lee. We had covered that, I think, Michael, and now we're going to move on, and things are going to get very, very interesting. And I know that Michael has some surprises for all of us, because I have not listened to Michael speak much about the details of the script. He's given me a little heads up here and there, but that's about it. And I like to leave the suspense for all of us, Michael, so we can all experience this journey. We're traveling deep into recent history, the history of Bruce Lee. So thank you, Michael, for making the script and taking the time to meet with me and do these sessions in English, which is not your native language, but I think you're doing well with your English, Michael. We've been doing these sessions now for, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years? What is it, Michael? I think it's about 5 years since we started with Jörg Glissman in 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Good morning, America, first of all.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, whenever you listen to that session.
Germany and Europe, yes.
Yeah. I know that I started together with Jörg, the German version of the Satanic Music Agenda in July 2019. And before I did some things on the book of Griesinger in 2018 with Jörg, and that's when we started also in English doing the Codeword Babylon series. So it's now 5 years.
Yeah, it's 5 years. That's right.
It's 5 years, close to 5 years.
5 full years, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because I think it was summer you introduced yourself, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe Jörg was proposing me to take part in at least to listen to that Codeword Babylon, because in the earlier sessions I did not know anything about that book. So first of all, I had to read it, and that's also what's research all about, is about reading books, and that's the problem with it, that people don't want to read books anymore.
Sadly, I have to agree with that, and it's just it's a real dilemma that we're in with society, because society hasn't taken the time to slow down and really think about where their origins are, studying their true history, and not listening to the lies that the media shoves down our throat every 2 seconds. And sadly, you get stuck in this little box that they've built for you called alternative media, which is no alternative at all. It's actually just a regurgitation of more of the propaganda. So, yeah, it's lies everywhere you go. And Michael and I are meeting here on a Sabbath, and we consider the Saturday to be the Sabbath, like it or not. And it's backed up by not only the New Covenant, but the Old Covenant, the New and Old Testaments in the Bible. And I think this is a really great thing that we keep this going. And I know that a lot of the material we did recently here on the death of Bruce Lee is really rigorous, but it's interesting to note that you can look at this like a template, and that's, I think, the way Michael is going to be going, is that there is a definite, pattern, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah, we will see all the strings running together quite soon. At the moment, I'm just looking when we have published the first session on the Satanic Media Agenda. I can tell you when we have published the second session. Can't find the first session for unknown reasons. The second session has been published on Peter Gabriel on the 16th of February 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So 3.5 years up to now. Why? Okay, let's dive in it. You see the number of the session is 124, and this is already the 19th issue or session on Bruce Lee.
Excellent.
So, my secret weapon is beside me. It's a special drop that I don't lose my voice. I'm ranting.
Yes, go right ahead.
So, Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I can read that again, Michael, if you want. Quote, the masses have never thirsted after truth. They turn aside from evidence that is not to their taste, preferring to defy error if error seduce them. Whoever can supply them with illusions is easily their master. Whoever attempts to destroy their illusions is always their victim. An individual in a crowd is a grain of sand amid other grains of sand, which the wind stirs up at will, unquote. That's Gustave Le Bon.
Yeah, it's a French...
I may have butchered that. How do you say it?
Gustave Le Bon. Le Bon actually means the good one.
Okay.
It's, Gustave Le Bon. It's a French doctor of medicine. Anthropologist, psychology, sociology, and discoverer. Or what is it? Mass psychology. Tony Jaa. You can't compare these people. You see, the development goes on in martial arts, in car development, computer development. So Bruce Lee set the pace, and there are others to follow, one of them being Tony Jaa. This is a highly successful martial arts movie. What's the story about Ong Bak? It's believed in a village in Thailand had been robbed of the most valuable Buddha statue, so it has to do with Buddhism. In addition to Ting, a very skilled fighter, the small town also has to very skilled fighter in the form of Ting, who sets out on a quest to recover the cherished figure. A volatile drug dealer is the next target on his journey. So you see that is all about drugs once again. We have one of the famous martial arts movies of all time, Ong Bak 2003. We have the content of drugs. Interesting, huh? And I have 3 inserts here. The film Ong Bak Muay Thai Warrior is based on a true story. And the drug dealer says to Tony Jaa in that movie, with a throat microphone, because obviously he has lost his voice, I have no faith in religion. That's this guy. I only believe in myself. And I think, oh, that sounds much familiar. I am God, he says. I decide if you live or die. And that reminded me of Genesis 3, when the devil, in the shape or disguise of a serpent, told Eve, "You shall not surely die. Ye shall be gods, knowing good and evil." Sorry if I now have limited your part, Brad.
No worries.
Yeah, but isn't it so that that many martial artists or people in power, they have really they think themselves as godlike because they are master of life and death, because the martial artist can also put the light outs of anybody because of his skills, and anybody in charge with the money here, that alleged drug dealer, who else figure that is represented here from that actor. He has just the money to buy some martial artists and weapons and all the stuff to play God. I am God, I decide if you live or die. And I think also that's the problem I have with the martial arts, that many people just will be hurt and just also doesn't use it only for self-defense, but in an aggressive kind of way, just to show off or to just make money out of it. In the example of cage fights, for example, that's my problem as a Christian I got with martial arts. I tell it quite clearly. It's quite frank my problem I got with it. But I just want to use it, because you see that even in the more modern approach, this is 30 years after Bruce Lee, 1973, Enter the Dragon, it's all about drugs. Yeah, or it's about the statue, it's about religion and drugs. So that guy is using a throat microphone. First of all, I thought it was a vocoder, which is mostly used of imitating voice, an artificial voice, could sound like a demon, could sound like what else, 4-1, but it's just a throat microphone. So maybe that guy is pretended to have cancer or what. But now let's get on with Bruce Lee. From the book, John Little, which is the official Bruce Lee historian on the Bruce Lee, Linda Lee estate, The Warrior Within, The Philosophies of Bruce Lee, we learn on page 136 that is a warrior within. Yeah? So it is not the friendly one, but it's a warrior. These people, or Bruce Lee especially, he has a kiai, which also is very common in karate. That's a yell which you do when you are just hitting a target, a fighting yell, is employed in an attempt to throw an opponent off psychic center, so to impress somebody or to just fear somebody. I have also a different explanation with it. I think it's also the use to exhale when you hit an opponent, because when you exhale, you're not so fragile, because then your muscles have more tension than if you do not exhale. I'm sorry, I'm really no native English speaker. I hope I just made my point, but that's just not a part of the Bruce Lee session, because now we are dealing with Bruce Lee's death, and it's a very miserable part of that story. But I just wanted to let you know, it's about warrior, it's about also playing God, because I know that Bruce Lee also had sent people to hospital, they were challenging him and all the stuff, and I just don't want to be in his shoes. So, we're coming to the 20th of July, finally. That day is the official day of death of Bruce Lee. From the foundation script of Popcard Master, we learn, in the morning of July the 20th, Bruce typed a letter to his American attorney, Adrian Marshall, about several big deals on the table, including the multi-picture offer from Warner Bros. And a proposal from Hanna-Barbera to create an animated series based on his life. There were also offers for books, clothing, and endorsements. Bruce Lee was building an empire. That is the official story. Digging deeper. Bruce had a July 20 diary note about wanting to suggest Raymond Chow to meet him in Los Angeles on August the 6th. Coincidentally, August the 6th, 2 years later, was when Raymond made his final offer to Bruce's widow Linda so as to purchase Bruce's Concord Company. Additionally, August 6 in 2011 was when there was an auction in Hong Kong where 13 of Bruce's belongings were on sale. There was a letter dated July the 20th from Bruce to attorney Adrian Marshall that many people, including me, I have to tell, have speculated to be forged, given how it contradicts things which we have come to know about Bruce. What's especially interesting is that Bruce supposedly told Adrian, so Adrian is Morgan. Adrian Morgan is the only native English speaker at Golden Harvest Studios from Raymond Chow. Was been sent there by Warner Bros., if I remember correctly. What's especially interesting is that Bruce supposedly told Adrian that he would be arriving in LA on August the 3rd, so that the weekend of 4th and 5th would be about discussing Bruce's offers from around the world. This is odd, since Bruce told his mother and the workers at the Black Belt magazine office that he would be returning to LA in late July. According to the letter, the Enter the Dragon publicity tour would end in New York on August the 24th, and Bruce would meet Linda in LA on August the 26th to return to Hong Kong, despite having wanted to leave Hong Kong for America by the end of May. Bruce was looking forward to living in America because libel laws were stricter than they were in Hong Kong. Also, Robert Klaus, that's the director of Enter the Dragon, Robert Klaus' wife Anne claimed that Linda didn't like Hong Kong. Next book coming up is Bruce Lee from John Little, Letters of the Dragon, and this is the letter which is all about the official, or one of the last letters on the date of the death, July the 20th. There Adrian will be arriving on August the 4th and 5th, which would absolutely shatter the timeline which he allegedly told his mother and the Black Belt community. So, this is a letter which we see later, written with a typewriter, which includes Raymond. And we know that he has a falling out of Raymond, because do we remember last session about Joey Chan telling him that Raymond was furious about Bruce Lee going to his rival company, Shaw Brothers, and Raymond Shaw said he wanted to switch company over my dead body. And now we see that there is a letter of Bruce Lee with only the signature of Bruce under it, with a typewriter, which then in the I won't sign anything until then, Raymond and Sai sit down and we have talked. Yeah, so it's absolutely unbelievable, in my humble opinion, that he wrote this letter. So then you know there is so much fishy things going on. I can't read, because you see that we would do 150 plus sessions on Bruce Lee if I would read anything, but maybe I would just have these are just some notes from me. So the last month of Bruce Lee, coming back to the original script, there has been hearsay about whether Bruce really did write to his attorney, Adrian Marshall, on July the 20th. After all, his service was dismissed in the previous year for an unidentified reason. I'm getting a little bit closer to the microphone, because there are rumors out of Tom Blicker, who later married Linda Lee, that Adrian Marshall had a year-long affair with Linda Lee, which began in 1972 when Bruce was in Rome. Okay. Considering that Adrian went on to have a decade-spanning relationship with Linda after his death, it's patently clear that the letter was a fabrication so as to make sure that she could control Bruce's estate, although Bruce has handed over his belongings, if I remember correctly, to his butler, Wu Nagan. That's the guy who has to take all his sidekicks in the movie. Or many of them. When talking about future plans, Cy Weintraub is mentioned in the letter, but not George Lazenby, the alleged 007 actor, which never made it to a Bruce Lee movie. Remark of Michael, so of me, if the letter is a fabrication, then what about the drug letters? Are they also a fabrication, or one of them? Are they all authentical? If one letter is a fabrication, then I have to assume there are maybe more letters who are a fabrication. For example, when on Thursday, March the 29th, Linda Lee writes, and I have seen that letter, "Dear Bob, received," that's his drug dealer, Bob Baker, "I've bought a gram measurer, and enclosed you will find $500 for the amount of C you quote that Bruce can get, so cocaine. I'll measure it, but the quality plus the quantity Bruce himself will have to judge. I hope you will send the Moses along with 1 ounce of hashish oil or whatever." Okay. And then it's really interesting, I have to blend it in here, that Linda Lee said on one occasion, "Don't worry about Bruce, he's not going overboard." Yeah, so much for prophecy. After finishing the letter on that very day and posting it, Bruce left his mansion in Kowloon and drove to Gordon Harvest Studios. He met with George Lazenby, the Australian James Bond, which then was not the Australian James Bond, but the old James Bond, because the new James Bond was already on the scene with Roger Moore, Live and Let Die, last session. He further discusses his participation in Game of Death. Remark of mine is highlighted in blue here. There are no pictures of this. So I have seen no pictures of George Lazenby together with Bruce Lee, which is odd, which is really odd. You see, you can claim anything. But if there are no pictures, it most likely does not happen, or did not happen. But even today, if there are pictures, it might also be Photoshop, so who knows? As the only native English speaker at the studio, Mr. Andre Morgan joined them. Since Bruce has already shot much of the ending of the film, the goal was to come up with ways to work Lazenby into the story. "We sat around shooting the shit," Morgan recalled. Coming from a quote, an official print of Bruce Lee Alive by Matthew Polly, you know, that guy who has a radar if somebody is a murderer or not. In the case of Raymond Shaw, all his violence predator senses. This is the official print which somebody posted on the internet, so I guess we can read it. After the meeting, Bruce swung by Raymond Chow's office to say that he wanted Lazenby in Game of Death. Chow suggested they all go out for dinner to formalize the deal. Okay. And you have to know that Raymond and Bruce said this video here were the best of friends, and this is totally contradicting all my research. It's not. Bruce returned to Morgan's office. Remember, this is the official story. He pulled out his bag of hash and offered some to Andre. They both had a nibble. Bruce and Andre were supposed to take George Lazenby out to lunch, but Bruce had other plans and cancelled. He wanted to visit Betty Ting-Pei's apartment for a nooner. The studio driver took Lazenby back to his hotel. Bruce promised to be back in the studio in the afternoon, settled, blah, 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 how much money and blah, blah, blah. You have to believe it. Bruce jumped into his Mercedes and drove away. He arrived at Betty Ting-Pei's second-floor apartment at 67? Later will be very interesting. Beacon Hill Road at around 1 p.m. Or so. But there are no witnesses here, this is my remark, unless an unnamed doorman later on in the trial. Interesting. It was a one-bedroom with parquet flooring, wooden walls, and thick blue curtains. They spent the next several hours alone together. I was his girlfriend, Betty says. Yeah. But according to an actor I found, he said, oh no, Bruce had already split up with Betty prior to his death. Which makes the entire story really interesting, or also a fabrication. Because what would be the purpose to go to Betty Ting-Pei's apartment if he had split up? And did he drove to Betty Ting's apartment if they had split up? And why didn't he implement Betty Ting-Pei in his former movies when he met Betty Ting-Pei in Rome in Way of the Dragon in 1972? Been introduced by Raymond Chow to him, most likely, my remark, as a spy. Why didn't he work her in already in The Way of the Dragon? Or why didn't he work her in Enter the Dragon? Why, out of a sudden, must he work her in Game of Death? Or was he in any kind of way blackmailed? Nobody knows, but yeah. I was his girlfriend, Betty says. Maybe that was the case in 1972. But in July 1973, there are several people who are doubting this. So, the official story I don't give any peep about. There was some sex and some hash. Remember, this is from one of the biggest biographies on Bruce Lee, but no alcohol or harder drugs. Mostly Bruce was hyped about his meeting with George Lazenby and what it meant for his movie. And that's total BS in my humble opinion, because he was focusing on getting back to the United States and having a big deal and a contract with Warner Brothers. He offered Betty the role of the love interest. Yeah, why should he do this? I said, Enter the Dragon? ? Way of the Dragon? ? Betty claims she resisted the idea if she didn't feel comfortable playing his girlfriend on screen while being his mistress in real life. And that is also not true. I never wanted to make the movie, she says. I would like to feel embarrassed to face someone I love. But she had no problem to star a little bit later in a movie naked with somebody pretending to Bruce Lee. Pfft, come on. Yeah? My remark, that is the official story, that she should play a role in Game of Death. But what is Game of Death other than the working title of his second to last unfinished movie? Maybe she should play a role in his Game of Death on the 20th of July. And not in the movie Game of Death. So it's not a lie, but it's just for you to confuse you. It is Bruce Lee's Game of Death on the 20th of July. Does he make it or will he fail? And she will play a role in that movie or in that script for the 20th of July, in my humble opinion, but just as a patsy like Lee Harvey Oswald in the Kennedy case. That's my humble opinion. Yet you are free to have any other opinion. So, official story. Raymond Chow arrives at Betty's apartment around 6 p.m. It is not entirely clear why. Yeah. Chow and Morgan had been waiting all afternoon for Bruce to return to Golden Harvest to work out the deal for Lazenby, and I will perhaps It was a scorching day, the temperature of 90 degrees Fahrenheit and humidity 84%, the hottest day of the month. Yeah, that's why Matthew Polly comes up with the opinion and theory of heat stroke. Bruce wasn't feeling very well. Chow recalls, I wasn't feeling very well either. I think we had some water, and then he was acting. He jumped and performed scene after scene, scene after scene, and he seems a little bit dizzy. Immediately after feeling faint, Bruce complained of a headache. It was nearing 7:30 in the afternoon, p.m. They were supposed to pick up Lazenby for dinner. Betty had changed her clothes. Oh, interesting, huh? And in front of Bruce, of course, and was ready to go, but the pain in Bruce's head has grown worse. When Bruce said he wanted to rest, Chow jumped up awkwardly and tried to leave. Raymond thought it was an excuse. Betty recalls with a smile. Betty gave Bruce one of her Equagesic pills, a common prescription pain medication. She says that wasn't the first time Bruce had taken them before. And there goes your theory about the Equagesic. Even in some big biography. Raymond suggested to go first and then that they would come later. Bruce went into Betty's bedroom, undressed and sank into her mattress lying on the floor. Betty shut the door. She was looking to television. Raymond departed, and I think that you don't want me to go into this because everything that you will find in here, in my humble opinion, is a script.
Well, that's interesting right there, that find, Michael, that Bruce had taken this pill before anyway. Mm-hmm. So if that's true, then, yeah, like you said, it's just a total fabrication.
It's a total fabrication. And there is some other bloke who's backing that up. It's Tom Bleecker. He says he's got a medication bill of Bruce from 1972 to have Equagesic. So, and also he didn't had any Equagesic on the 10th of May when he first had vomiting and seizures at the Golden Harvest dubbing studios when he was almost dying on that day when he was going to the Baptist hospital. Yeah, so he did not had any Equagesic. So sorry, but that is an absolute fabrication. If you know, Brett, that it is a fabrication with the Equagesic, then the entire story is a fabrication.
Right. Exactly. Yeah? Exactly.
It all crushes together now.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like a children's tower here, and you just kick it in with your foot. It has no substantiation.
And it all falls apart. Yeah, that's right.
All falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 30. Raymond departed to pick up Lazenby, and they went to the Miramar Hotel, which is controlled by the Triads. After 30 minutes waiting at the bar, Chow called Betty's apartment. She told him Bruce was still asleep, and then he telephoned Betty again, and Bruce was still asleep, and Betty opened the door slowly. Bruce, 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 panic rising and more Bruce. Betty called Raymond back at the restaurant, hysterics. She couldn't wake him up. Raymond told her to calm down. He would drive over to the flat immediately, but of course he was hindered by the typhoon called Dorothy. Raymond flashed back to May the 10th. He called Dr. Langford, but the line was busy. So that's Bruce's doctor. Raymond raced across the town to Betty's apartment. This was before cell phones. At stoplights, Raymond repeatedly jumped out of the car to use a payphone to rear dial Dr. Langford. The line was busy. Langford's doctor was on the phone with her boyfriend. So, according to the official story, Dr. Langford's daughter is reliable for Bruce Lee's death. You see, you can twist everything around here, and it absolutely makes no sense. Why does nobody call an ambulance? When Chow arrived at the apartment, he found Bruce undressed, lying flat on a mattress. Betty crumpled to him in a state of shock. Bruce, 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 more Bruce. Betty kept calling out, her voice, etc. Bruce Lee did not respond. Raymond Chow realized it was too late. His star was already dead. Interesting that he realized it, but wait for that. The most famous man in Hong Kong was dead in his mistress' bed, and the two of them were the only witnesses. Yeah, and that makes the problem with it, because there are no reliable witnesses. The scandal would consume them, the press would blame them, Bruce Lee, and it could end their careers, maybe even put them in legal jeopardy. If Raymond's original imperative was to save Bruce's life, now his immediate goal was clear. Bruce Lee had to die somewhere else besides his mistress' apartment. So Raymond redressed Bruce's body. He buttoned up his shirt, put on his European-style trousers, laced up his high-heeled platform boots. Oh, all this stuff here. Chow may have considered moving the body. Bruce's home was only a 5-minute drive away. He may have, maybe, perhaps, and all the stuff. The death of a superstar at home or a hospital would shock but not scandalize the public. Immediately, or ultimately, Chow decided to bring a doctor. He told Patty Ting Pei to call her personal concierge physician, Dr. Eugene Chu, who worked at the Baptist Hospital where Bruce Lee on the 10th of May had been treated. Betty implored Dr. Chu to come over to her apartment to treat a friend in need of help. She did not tell the good doctor the name of the patient or his condition. When Dr. Chu arrived, he found Bruce Lee lying in bed, deeply comatose and not rousable. Come on. If Raymond Chow realized that Bruce Lee is dead, then Dr. Chu did not found him deeply comatose. He found him dead. His pulse was not perceptible and the heartbeat was not audible. That means he was dead. There was no respiration and no sign of life. That means he was dead. It's been tried here not to print the word dead. He tried to receive proof for 10 minutes without success. And what does that make any other solution than Bruce was already dead? And now I'm so tired of time-consuming going into all the lies. And we have now contradiction. In a 1993 documentary titled Death by Misadventure, one of Bruce's cameramen had an anecdote that contradicted the official story timeline. Basically, Bruce was long gone by that time. That was 6:30 on July the 20th. Yet the official story is that he was still alive when he went to sleep in Betty's bed at 7:30. Charles Lowe recalled waiting for Bruce to show up at the restaurant. At 6:30, he phoned Bruce's residence and was surprised to hear an At 6:30, he phoned Bruce's residence and was surprised to hear an unfamiliar voice on the receiving end. The identified man told Charles that Bruce wasn't home because something happened. The man hung up the phone. Charles went to Bruce's house where the only people that he saw were 4 of his stuntmen and his son Brandon, who would later become the star of The Crow. And by the way, he was shot by accident. Not wanting to be seen as elusive in front of the morose man whose information that he sought to inquire, Charles engaged Brandon in conversation by asking a question in Cantonese instead of English. Where's Papa? So where's Daddy? In rough Cantonese, Brandon implied that Bruce was working on a movie by saying, Daddy go movie, Daddy go movie. Charles observed that the stuntman looked so sad yet secretive. One of the stuntmen said, I don't think that he will come back. And that's 6:30. The official timeline tells you that at 7:30 Bruce was having a nap. Charles then asked what hospital was he taken to. They wouldn't say anything. Perhaps they knew about the aforementioned negotiation taking place. And wait. Just wait. When it became obvious that further conversation would be like talking to a brick wall, Charles left. Thanks to the press, he found out about Bruce's death on the following day, like most, if not all, people in Hong Kong. At that point, or this point, going back to the official story, it must have been abundantly clear to Dr. Chu that Bruce Lee had died before he arrived. It seems likely that Raymond explained to Dr. Chu the gravity of the situation and pleaded with him to drive Bruce's body to Baptist Hospital, which was only half a mile away, in order to limit the number of witnesses. Instead, Dr. Chu decided to call an ambulance to treat a person who had collapsed. The ambulance officials were not told that it was Bruce Lee or that he was already deceased. Dr. Chu insisted that the so-called patients would be taken to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, which was 25 minutes away, rather than the much closer Baptist, presumably because he didn't want to bring this radioactive scandal to his place of employment. He would go along with the ruse, but not so far. This is the address of Patty Ting Pei, this is Baptist Hospital, and this is Queen Elizabeth Hospital, taking you for a 25 minutes ride. Before the ambulance had even arrived, Raymond, the veteran producer, took control of the production. Yeah, congratulations, Matthew Polly, it was a production. He told Betty not to say anything to the press. Then he called Bruce's wife at their home. Would you go to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital right away? Linda, Bruce is on the way there in an ambulance. What's the matter? I don't know. Something like the last time. It took 7 minutes for the 2 paramedics and the ambulance driver to arrive at the scene around 10:30 p.m. The senior paramedic, Pang Tak-sung, found the patient, who didn't immediately recognize, lying on his back on the mattress on the floor. Pang couldn't find a pulse and the patient wasn't breathing. He performed the CPR and gave artificial oxygen. There was no change in the patient. The paramedics carried him to the ambulance. Raymond Chow and Dr. Chu jumped in back with them. The paramedics continued to treat Bruce's lifeless body during the lengthy ride to Queen Elizabeth. Pang later explained why he continued treatment long after there was any hope of success, quote unquote. As a first aid man, even if a person was apparently dead, I have invariably to treat him and on or her as a still living person and apply my first aid. From the book of Marcos Ocana Rizzo, La Muerte, The Death of Bruce Lee, we learn the following. And I will read it to Brett. I will show it Brett so that he can testify that it's really there. But I just don't want to show it. I just want to tell you then the things as Brett as being my witness. Speaking of Marcos Ocana Rizzo, he's a school teacher. So he's a clever guy, but of course he makes he's one Bruce Lee admirer, and I don't know if he is questioning the entire story or if he's just more comfortable to be inside the frame and not stepping out of the frame. But he tells us that he has done elaborate research, and I congratulate on him because I have read this book in English, of course. He has all these copies of the trial. He has copies of the medical stuff. He has copies of police reports and all the stuff. It's very interesting, and you see all the contradictions. You see contradictions of witnesses, contradictions on timelines. It's unbelievable. The entire thing is a fabrication. Yeah, also Linda said that was the first time of Aquagesic, but Tom Bleeker says, no, I have a prescription here from Bruce from 1972. And Marcus says there is a lot of cocaine, which is not in all the reports, which has been dropped out of all the reports, and it could not be found. Who's in the flat except Bruce Lee, except Dr. Wu, except Raymond Chow, and except Betty Ding Play? Pang Tak-sung says there were 3 males in the flat, except the patient, and 1 female, and one of the males was rather young. So, there is 1 additional person mentioned in the interrogation, which Wikipedia does not tell you. And which in the trial, nobody asks. Nobody asks who was that additional young guy in the flat. Nobody. For what purpose was the young guy there? And that's a huge atom bomb here. If the court does not want to investigate when the findings of a dead celebrity, Bruce Lee, who's then present at the death of Bruce Lee, then sorry, this is not a lousy investigation. This is a total fabrication. You don't have to believe me. You then have to, if you don't believe me, you buy that book. The Death of Bruce Lee. Pang Tak-sung says there were 3 males in that flat, and the patient and a female. And one of the males was rather young. I leave it up to you what kind of conclusion you start from this. But the official story is absolutely bullshit. Let's move on. Linda arrived at Queen Elizabeth 15 minutes before the ambulance. Somebody must be joking that the hospital told her, we don't know anything about it. And so the fabrication story goes on and on and on and on and on. You know that the story is fabricated because it can't be the Aquagesic. And there are other guys or another person present there at the location of Bruce's death, the official location of death, which has never been explained who it was, except that Pang Tak-sung says he was rather young. So, I think that's extremely suspicious when there is somebody showing up, and Raymond and Dr. Wu and Betty Ting Pei, they all do not tell you who it was, because nobody asked them. Pang Tak-sung makes that testimony at the trial, and nobody asks him. And you have to assume that that was done on purpose. So they don't want you to know all this stuff. They just want you to buy the official story, including the court. I'm sorry, you know that in Hong Kong the police and the trials were interchangeable. What does that tell you about the jurisdictional system there?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Linda noticed that the EKG machine recording Bruce's heart was flatlined. The doctor gave up and of the macabre charade of trying to revive a man who had died long before he arrived at the hospital. Yeah. Nobody wanted to be responsible. That's why he had to be dead on arrival and not dead on Betty's flat. Yeah. And you have to question everything now. When you know exegesic is BS and there is a third person in the flat, everything is BS now. So it's a complete charade. It's Bruce Lee's own game of death, which he lost. Yeah. The head of the medical team asked her if she wanted an autopsy. Yes, I want to know how he died. She said, that is the official story. And now we, later on, maybe next session, we find out that it's the complete other way around, that she does not want to know. It's like Jacqueline Kennedy. It does not bring my husband back, huh? So then the telephones across Hong Kong started ringing with the news. Bruce Lee was dead at the age of 32. The cause of death was unknown. A call was made to Charles Sutcliffe, Hong Kong's new police commissioner, because the old one, Peter, was fleeing to Great Britain. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. Yeah. It's not... It's unbelievable. You see that it's no problem. It's no wonder that rumors were swirled along the journalists, because the official story was that Bruce Lee died peacefully at his home together with Linda Lee. That's the official story. Mm-hmm. At nearby payphones, reporters frankly called their sources. One of them reached Charles Lowe, the assistant director on Enter the Dragon and Bruce's Hague drinking buddy. Somebody told me Bruce Lee died in a fight, the reporter said. Can you confirm? Rumors. Lowe replied with a sinking feeling. It's just a rumor. He was beaten up by 10 or 20 people in Tsim Sha Tsui, the reporter continued. Or maybe you already know. You're crazy, Lowe shouted and hung up. Worried, he called over to Bruce's residence. 8-year-old Brandon picked up the phone. Is your dad home? No home, he said in Cantonese. Where is he? Movie, movie, movie. As Raymond and Linda approached the doors of the hospital to leave, the entrance lit up with the flashes of photographers' bulbs. Seeing they were trapped, they retreated. Raymond telephoned his wife and asked her to pick them up. Realizing the media would swarm Bruce's home, Chow then called Dr. Langford, who lived nearby, and asked if he and Linda could stop by his house. Isn't that odd? Dr. Langford was the one who was injecting Bruce mannitol to flush out all the sodium and all the stuff out of his system, and saved his life on May the 10th. And then Raymond, Chow and Linda, they were getting to Dr. Langford's house. I assume from that small insert here, from that sentence, that they are on special terms. Because usually you don't go to any doctor in the middle of the night. Interesting. Dr. Langford, who said on the first occasion of May the 10th, his neck seemed a bit rigid at least part of the time. We thought we needed a very expert neurological or neurosurgical guy. Yeah, and he said that that was Mr. Peter Wu, and Mr. Peter Wu assisted him on May the 10th, and they had conversations on the telephone the next day and even days later because of the subject, and we only have to estimate that maybe they had a speaking suspicion. Linda suddenly insisted on going back to see her husband one more time, and that's all not that interesting here. At 12:30 a.m., that's interesting because that's the same time when Kennedy, but in the afternoon, has been shot, 12:30, the police arrived at Betty Ting's Pei apartment. They did not tell her that Bruce was dead, and the police did not tell that Bruce was dead. Come on, really. You see, she couldn't wake him up, Raymond couldn't wake him up, and the doctor tried for 10 minutes. Yeah, and the police didn't tell her that Bruce was dead. How stupid that girl must be, or must appear. Of course she knew that Bruce was dead. My. You see, they found no sign of struggle or physical alteration. The mattress on the floor was neatly made. They put into evidence 3 glasses on a living room table, 2 half-empty bottles of 7-Up and Schweppes ginger beer, and I had to smile at 7-Up, but maybe on a later occasion, and an open tinfoil package of Equagesic pills. But Betty gave a full statement to the police. Yeah. Given the consistency of Raymond's and Betty's later testimony, it seemed likely that he had already coached her in what to say. She was a professional actress and skilled at memorizing her lines. Yeah. Sure, it's all acting. Linda Lee, the widow, in February 1975. Raymond Chow had successfully raised Bruce Lee from the dead just long enough that he could officially die somewhere besides Betty's apartment. To complete the cover-up, he needed to stage manage one other player in this morbid drama. He arrived with Linda at Dr. Langford's house around 1 a.m. Linda asked Dr. Langford, "What do you know about Bruce and other women? And do you really believe this? That she had no other..." Sorry. Sorry. For me, this is all the story. Andrew Morgan received a call from Raymond Chow in the middle of the night. He rushed over to Gordon Harvest, where Chow was already in full damage control. Morgan was assigned to write the English language press releases, while Raymond authorized the releases to the Chinese media. At some internal debate, Gordon Harvest settled on the wording of its written statement. Official Bruce Lee collapsed at his home while walking in his garden with his wife Linda. Gordon Harvest mourns the loss of a great star. Around the same time, Queen Elizabeth Hospital released its formal explanation. The actor Bruce Lee died of an acute cerebral edema. The cause of the cerebral edema is yet unknown. Based on these 2 accounts, the Hong Kong press reported to the public that their hero had died from a brain edema of unknown origins while strolling in his home garden with his beloved wife. "We wanted to protect Bruce's image and the reputation and to protect Linda and the children's feelings," explains Andrew Morgan. "We were not stupid enough to believe that we were not going to get tagged out. It was a matter of how long we could delay." This fabricated version of Bruce Lee's death held up for 3 days. Mr. S.H.S. Chow, not Raymond, an intrepid reporter who had profiled Bruce Lee multiple times for the China Mail, was suspicious of Gordon Harvest's picturesque account and began calling his sources. Every Hong Kong hospital kept a written ambulance log listing picking up addresses. It took only 2 days for Chow to find the right ambulance log, track down the driver and convince him to talk. Ambulance 40 had picked up Bruce Lee from a second-floor apartment at 67 Beacon Hill Road, but Bruce's home was at 41 Cumberland Road. After a few more phone calls, H.S. Chow discovered that the occupant of the Beacon Hill Road apartment was Betty Ting Pei. Yeah, and then of course you can imagine what the press did with it. Who's lying? The headline was, "Who's lying on Lee's death?" Film star Bruce Lee spent the last hours in the flat of beautiful actress Ting Pei. Bruce Lee shock. Yeah, so they did lie on purpose for the first fabrication. And also even the successor story of Betty Ting Pei. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. And this is the scripted Game of Death, even Bruce Lee's Game of Death. They arrived at Bruce's house at 3 p.m. They worked on the script until 5 p.m. Then they drove to Betty Ting's Pei apartment. The problem is that if you read all the court testimonies, they don't sum up. At 7 o'clock, Bruce Lee complained of a headache. 7:30, it grew worse. Then he was offered the analgesic, and you know the rest. The problem is that we have a contradictory statement of Charles Lowe, who said that he was at 6:30, as Bruce Lee's mentioned, and there was no one else but 4 stuntmen and Brandon Lee, the 8-year-old son of Bruce Lee. And already in 6:30, the stuntman said, "I don't think he will ever come back." At 6:30, officially, he was alive until at least 7:30 in Betty Ting's apartment. Yeah, so gets better and better. This updated version of Bruce Lee's death would hold up for 30 years. Bruce's older brother Peter identified the body at mortuary at Queen Elizabeth Hospital at 2:30 p.m. on July the 23rd. Can I add that is more than 3 days later? The autopsy was performed by Dr. R.R. Lisette. The body is that of a well-built Chinese male about 30 years of age, 172 centimeters. Dr. Lisette's autopsy report, his examination found no evidence of foul play. Interesting, huh? That is the first sentence here. The scalp is free of bruising and the skull shows no evidence of fracture or injury, either recent or old. There are no recent or old needle marks. Can I remind you that also you can have a high prolific autopsy, and if you're advised not to find anything, you won't find anything because you don't want to lose your job, your reputation, your social status, or all your belongings, or worse. If the court does not investigate into the third male in Betty Ting's apartment, then you have to question the entire investigation. I am not going into conspiracy details. I'm just using common sense. You can't trust anybody. In that case, in Hong Kong in July 1973, with a not correctly working police, who tells you that if the police does not work correct, the court does? I don't buy it. His heart was normal as there were blood vessels in his brain. Bruce didn't die of a heart attack or a brain aneurysm. The only abnormalities Dr. Lisette could find were congestion in the lungs, intestines and kidneys, and swelling in the brain. The brain is very tense beneath the covering dura. The brain weighs 1,575 grams. A normal brain weighs up to 1,400 grams, and that is called a brain edema. And now I know why, but I can't tell you now because that would be one of the next sessions about this brain edema. Congestions and edema of the brain, excessive fluid accumulation were the immediate cause of death. The reason for the edema was a mystery. Still is. The last line of the autopsy did suggest the line of investigation. It is possible that the edema is the result of some drug intoxication. There were found the remnants of the analgesic pills, small traces of cannabis hash. Suspecting cannabis, Dr. Lisette met with Dr. Donald Langford and Dr. Peter Wu, the 2 doctors who had saved Bruce's life on May the 10th. They were already convinced that cannabis was responsible for his first collapse. They persuaded Dr. Lisette it was the leading candidate for his death on July the 20th. I believe the most likely cause of death is cannabis intoxication. Of course, that could not appear in the court because Bruce life insurances were on the stake. They were on the stake. More than $1 million was on the stake. So nobody was giving the truth. Nobody was playing fair or playing straight. Yeah? Either due to drug idiosyncrasy or massive overdose. In the latter, but not in court. Almost soon as Dr. Lisette discovered hash in Bruce's stomach, somebody in his office leaked it to the press. Surprisingly, in the colony, which 1973 recorded a seizure of 1.7 tons of opium, morphine and heroin, cannabis was still regarded by the Hong Kong police, press and public as a major evil. A deadly Western hippie drug that turned kids against their parents. Yeah, so sex, drugs, deception, death. Hong Kong press simply went wild. The tabloids reported as fact to their credulous readers that Bruce had died from an overdose of 707, Hong Kong's equivalent of Spanish fly, a supposedly potent sexual stimulant in the days before Viagra. Interesting. That's called cantaridin. It's a poisoning from Spanish fly. That is just a theory. Okay? From PubMed medical library here, it's been quoted. While most commonly available preparations of Spanish fly contain cantaridin in negligible accounts, while most commonly available preparations of Spanish fly contain cantaridin in negligible amounts, if at all, the chemical is available illicitly in concentrations capable of causing severe toxicity. Oh, sorry for my bad English today. Yeah. So symptoms of poisoning include burning of the mouth, nausea, hematomas, etc. So that is one of the many allegations, no? Which is really interesting because we have additional information here. Because Bruce Lee did say that he was receiving a revelation of cleverness from her, meaning from Betty Ting Pei, during the time frame of The Way of the Dragon, speaking of 1972, when Raymond Chow has introduced Betty Ting Pei to Bruce Lee. And there are pictures of Betty together with Bruce in Rome. The author here of Joseph Kuby, is his alleged name, if it is a real name. I can't imagine him subjecting himself to autoerotic asphyxiation like David Carradine, who filled in for Bruce when the silent flute was adapted as Circle of Iron. But then it is the photo of the hanged man in the Thailand hotel of David Carradine. You have to assume that this is A, David Carradine, and B, that it was really autoerotic and not some case of, what else? Gangs, rituals, jealousy. You see, I can't tell you who that guy is. Okay. Carradine had been accused of being a fan of potentially deadly kinky sex acts in divorce papers ex-wife Anderson filed against him in 2003. He died pleasuring himself. It happens, says here a New York Post article. No trials or secret societies. I'm sorry, this is not a proper research. This is just opinion. I have a hard time imagining that a hotel in Thailand will have a proper examination into this case. From Tepper Talk, we heard that David Carradine, that's wrongly pronounced here, Carradine, not Carradine, Carradine, was investigating dark martial arts secret society and was trying to get some grip on it before suddenly murdered in Thailand. That's another opinion. It's practically a warning that if anyone messes with the Chinese mafia and their martial arts, you could end up dead. You see, there are so many rumors and opinions, and everybody has the right to have his own. And I don't have any opinion because I have not studied that subject. I know that many people, that Carradine himself was using drugs and psilocybin and what else, mushrooms, and I do not know, in the 60s, 70s, and he was a very colorful actor, but I do not know what happened there. But to give you an example, I got a recent example here. There's a count of serious run-in with trials at a nightclub where a particular boss wanted Anita to sing for him and she rudely declined. After an exchange in unpleasantness, she made a remark in English which the boss didn't understand. When asked what was meant, she implied she didn't care. This led to someone taking revenge for her after she had been assaulted. It led even further to a shooting death of another producer in a hospital. Anita hid in America and Canada for a few years. Jackie Chan, who was a lover, had warned her about hanging in the nightclubs. Years later, performing onstage in concert, she felt ill and was rushed to the hospital for internal bleeding. She died afterward. It is very possible that Anita Mui was poisoned. Her rebellious nature and reputation was giving bosses a fit. In May 1992, Hong Kong's answer to Madonna Anita Mui got slapped around the face in a karaoke bar by a film director and suspected mainland tried Wong Long Lai after she refused to sing for him. Next day, he was attacked with a butcher's knife and later shot and killed in his hospital bed. Within days, police were investigating the murder of another filmmaker, Jimmy Choi Chi-ming, gunned down outside his distribution company. A year later, the Wan Chai triad boss, Anderly Chan, who was arrested but not charged with Wong's murder, was shot dead with his mechanic at the Macau Grand Prix. A Hong Kong race car driver and his mechanic were shot dead early Sunday morning while leaving a nightclub after a day of racing at the Macau Grand Prix. Did we know from the China session that Macau was very special because the Jesuits were there, and Macau was allowed, in comparison to Hong Kong, there was allowed, gambling was allowed there. So that makes much money, this Macau. And also Macau, of course, being the place where Bruce Lee's paradise is. In the conspiracy site, bbc.co UK, so the British Broadcasting Corporation, this is mainstream, of course. You also have to ask yourself if you believe this. But the BBC tells you, in 1992, the Hong Kong film industry took $1.5 billion at the box office. The following year, $1.1 billion. There was a downside. Organized crime followed the money. Actor, director, and producer Bay Logan, which is one of the most prolific sources in Hong Kong, records, quote unquote, "We used to joke that these films were made by gangsters, with gangsters, and for gangsters. There was money coming into the film world that had been generated through various apparently illegal activities. In the 80s, the film industry was a no-lose business. You could make money, you could launder cash very quickly. In Hong Kong, organized crime is the domain of triad gangs. Their business methods soon followed their money into the industry. The actors claim that 90% of the industry was controlled by triads." Once again, I like to remind you, this is coming from BBC CO. This is coming from the British Broadcasting Corporation. This is the official news or official truth. And that they spoke about what that meant. Top actor Andy Lau said his manager had been held at gunpoint to force Andy to appear in films over a period of 3 years. A leading actress said she had been gang raped of the instruction of a producer whose advances she had spurned. Another said she had been held by force until filming was finished. Later, when she pulled out of a film contract, she was made to withdraw $200,000 and watch while the Dragonhead, or the triad leader, burned it. The cast of an award-winning film said they were still waiting to be paid. But the film industry was not wholly against the trials. Jackie Chan said that the march was not against the trials, only the indisciplined ones. Bay Logan explains they were attacking the methods more than the people. Coming back to that interesting story of aphrodisiac or Spanish fly 707 poisoning, it's very interesting because we were speaking of George Lazenby being one of the main actors, because he was an actor. He played a secret agent 007. He was an actor. Made a movie called The Shrine of Ultimate Bliss, or the alternative story, or the alternative title is Stoner, like being stoned, huh? So produced by Raymond Chow, with Betty Ting Play. Yeah, you see the two main actors together in a movie. Release date August 1973, so you can guess when that has been made, huh? In Hong Kong. The Shrine of Ultimate Bliss, known as Stoner, a man called Stoner and Hong Kong hitman, was produced by Raymond Chow after the death of Bruce Lee. The film was originally scheduled to be Bruce Lee's next film after Game of Death. Oh, interesting, huh? Interesting, huh? Yeah, you have to believe it. However, Lee died while filming Game of Death in 1973, and that's the film release date was delayed by 5 years. It was the first of 3 films that George Lazenby made for Golden Harvest, the other being The Man from Hong Kong and The Queen's Ransom. The plot. When a tough Australian cop named Stoner, played by George Lazenby, discovers that his sister has overdosed on a deadly new drug called the Happy Pill, an aphrodisiac hallucination mixture. Congratulations. So, they have also a movie for every hypothesis you will come up in the case of the murder of Bruce Lee. And they make fun of it. every time that I'm going into a movie which has something to do with Hong Kong or martial arts, it has to be with drugs. If it is Ong Bak, there's a drug dealer. If it is here the Shrine of Ultimate Bliss, it's a dirty new drug. It's always drugs. Hence the name of Hong Kong, the fragrant harbor. Yeah, he meets up with the beautiful secret agent Angela Mao. I thought it was a beautiful secret agent Betty Ting Pei, but what do I know? Yeah. Who's on her own mission, interesting play of words, the mission is a sending out of agents by the Jesuits to investigate the same drug ring. Then they linked Bruce to a cornucopia of other drugs ranging from LSD to heroin to cocaine. But it's always drugs. On July the 25th, the Oriental Daily wrote, quote-unquote, "It has come to our attention that a straw and several paper baggies full of powder were found by Lee's deathbed." I have to question, which deathbed? Because I'm not convinced that Bruce Lee died at Betty Ting Pei's place. Because I'm not convinced that equagesic was the official cause. And I'm not convinced that the court was doing it fair and square. But everybody is playing tricks on us. Everybody. And she, of course, gained more fame than she would ever have if she would appear in 1,500 movies. Yeah, as the mistress of Bruce Lee. Wow. Starting with the Scarlet Woman. Nobody tells you that this is a phrase of the Bible of an apostate church. Yeah, Scarlet Woman. Betty the press piled on starlet after starlight, turning Bruce from a superhero into a super stud. Yeah. The press decided that they could add some spice to the story by not only including Betty Ting Pei, but all his other mistresses, said Andrew Morgan. Yeah. Yeah, so and that's it. Interesting sentence here is because Bruce blurred the line between his life and his big screen persona, and I think that's also what brought him down. Dr. Langford said that, Bruce considered himself as immortal. Yeah. There are people who think that Japanese martial artists have had a hand in Lee's death. Yeah. Alex Van Block in the first biography said, in Japan there's a tradition of assassins known as ninja, and every ninja was an accomplished pharmacist skilled in preparing different poisons. Oh my, this is another theory.
Really?
And I have made a complete comparison sheet, which is coming soon up. I've forgotten the ninjas, but I will. Yeah, okay. But we go on in full force. Rumors that Lee died with an erection were so prevalent that tabloid reporters bribed their way into the mortuary to snap photos of his cadaver. I paid the morgue beautician $1,500 You have to divide it to 7, so that $250 or so, to let me take pictures of Lee's corpse, said Patrick Wang, founder of the Kam Ye Pao tabloid. After snapping his face, I tried to photograph further down his body, for obvious reasons. The woman shoved me aside and dragged me out of the morgue, saying that I would get her fired. Interesting, huh? That everybody wants to avoid having a close look at Bruce, or the corpse of Bruce. When I go to this website, SM News, 45 years later, the funeral of Bruce Lee remembered. There was a band playing Outlaw Sign. The casket was 40,000 Hong Kong dollars. The top half of the coffin was opened. Inside there was a protective enclosure of glass covering Bruce's body to prevent anyone from touching him. Linda had dressed her husband in a blue Chinese outfit he had worn in Enter the Dragon and liked to wear around the house because it was comfortable. You have to believe it. You see that when there was close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit and high humidity, I really doubt that Bruce Lee was having a good time going around in a dress outside, but what do I know? Beneath the glass, Bruce's face looked grey and distorted despite heavy makeup, and I said, oh yeah, it's like a movie, huh, with the makeup? While Patrick Wang wasn't able to prove priapism, erection of phallus, his photographs of Bruce's face did show bloating. When film from Bruce's Hong Kong funeral also captured a swollen and distorted face underneath the glass of his coffin, it set off a new round of conspiracy theories. A bloated face proved Bruce was poisoned. According to Andrew Morgan, the explanation was more prosaic. Bruce's face was swollen because of a botched embalming job. Most bodies in Hong Kong are cremated because burial spots are so expensive. Morgan says, the truth is they were really awful embalmers. And I had constantly shaken my head at this point. Question: why are people sworn in between the mortuary and funeral directors for embalming? Yeah. If you then see that if they had applied something into the body, that these bodies are swollen all over. The neck, the face, the hands, the arm, everything. Aha! But it's not about everything, it's about partially. And that's what my investigation started to go full force, and I said, sorry guys. My remark is, the picture of Bruce Lee in the morgue, if authentic, because you have to question everything, by Patrick Wang, indicates a swelling on the left side of the neck only, concluding it wasn't from the embalming. Because if you really compare both pictures, left taken apparently and officially by Patrick Wang, the only picture that he was allowed to take by that beautician, if that story is correct, shows a bloating in the neck. And these pictures, I have made it with a coloration program here, because that is usually black and white, and I have to ask myself, why is a 1973 reporter using a black and white picture? Of course, because it is in the newspaper, but there must be some color prints. I have a hard time imagining that 1973 somebody is using a black and white, but what do I know? Maybe Hong Kong is really a third world country in 1973, as somebody is supposed. But if you really compare that, compare the left eyebrow, yeah, compare the color skin, compare the hair, and nothing fits. Nothing fits. Nothing. And if Andrew Morgan says that, oh yeah, that was a terrible, what did he say? The truth is they were really awful embalmers. I'm sorry, but Andrew Morgan is an employee in Golden Harvest. And Andrew Morgan said he had a nibble of hash in the morning of Bruce Lee, and I have to presume that he's in the job, that he's an insider, and that he's recording a script. Did not happen. If you really doubt the authenticity of that letter, and you know that the equagesic was not the cause, and there was a third man in the apartment of Betty Ting Pei, you have to question the entire day. The entire day from start to finish. And Andrew Morgan, as a Golden Harvest employee, sorry. His boss then is Raymond Chow, isn't it? So, if he says that it's embalming, I'm sorry. But that would not be partially. And what I'm seeing here is partially. And what I'm seeing is that some things don't add up. It simply doesn't add up. There are so many abnormal. Oh, please help me, Brett.
Abnormalities.
Thank you. There are so many abnormalities here between the pictures. We will go into this later, very, very in detail. At Bruce's Hong Kong funeral, Linda Lee issued a public statement from Kai Tak Airport before leaving to bury her husband. She implored the press and populace to stop speculating about Bruce's death. Although we do not have the final autopsy report, I have no suspicion of anything other than a natural death, she said. What then includes her in the line of suspects. I myself do not hold any person or people responsible for his death. Yeah. So, in my humble opinion, this is fear, and this is also recalling by memory. This is just acting. That means, on the other hand, she would say that, okay, if he was murdered, I don't care. I don't care. I do not want to know it. That's what it implicates. Broken-hearted Hong Kong. This is the second funeral, by the way, with Steve McQueen and James Coburn here in Seattle. Broken-hearted Hong Kong fans on the first burial were furious that Linda was taking Bruce's body to theater. There was a lot of hostility, anger, and suspicion, says Andrew Morgan. Suspicion there had been foul play, that it was all a setup, that he had been kidnapped. In an attempt to allay these suspicions, Golden Harvest sent a cameraman to film Bruce's funeral in theater and sent back the footage, etc. Now, if you look closely at the funeral of Bruce Lee, it's very apparent that Raymond Chow is not escorting her, as been claimed in all the original reports, but really is pushing her. Yeah, so he is in full control. Yeah, she's being pushed. Yeah, Raymond Chow has her in control. Yeah, you can say that. Oh, yeah, he's supporting her. Mm-hmm. It's his car, he's pushing her, he's in control. At least that's my impression. You're free to have another opinion. Okay, now you have seen it. To legally transport his body from Hong Kong to America, Bruce's coffin, which had a wide silk interior and a protective glass enclosure around his body, yeah, for what purpose, huh? Was sealed inside a lead-line shipping container and then laid inside a wooden shipping crate. When the crate was opened in theater, it was discovered that the coffin had rubbed against the lead lining during transport, severely marring the exterior. When the casket was opened, Andrew Morgan saw that the white silk interior has been stained blue from Bruce's suit. The freight area of a 747 is not pressurized, Morgan explains. Before we left, the glass had sealed the 89-degree and 98% humidity Hong Kong air inside the coffin. When the 747 leveled up at 38,000 feet, oh my, Brad knows why I'm highlighting it. The air condensed on the glass and started to drip. It was like a small rainstorm inside the coffin. Morgan decided a new coffin was needed and purchased the closest model available. It was slightly darker brown with a pleated velvet interior. Sharp-eyed viewers back in Hong Kong noticed the casket was different and accused Golden Harvest of switching the bodies. Oh, it does remind me of Kennedy once again. It's all spun out of control, says Morgan, from what were very easy things to explain. Yeah, but the problem is, it's not only very interesting when you combine it with John F. Kennedy, the problem is that I really find is that I see that glass covering only for the face, or maybe my eyes are too weak to find that. Everyone became a soothsayer looking for omens. Some blamed bad feng shui. On July the 18th, a typhoon struck Hong Kong and carried away Bruce Lee's feng shui reflector. Small octagon wooden frame. Yeah, that's most likely, huh? All of these fever speculation had real-world consequences to Pretty Haunted Betty Ting Pei. Betty Ting sues. The press said then Betty Ting Pei knows the reasons of Bruce Lee's death. And she most likely knows, but that's another story. Yeah. They discovered in a public square suspicious brown paper coverage in Chinese writing. Betty Ting knows the cause of Bruce Lee's death. Yeah, I'm convinced she knows it, but she will never tell you. Yeah. It's interesting. At 13 o'clock, Bruce Lee historian Tom Bleecker and the later husband of Linda Lee claimed that this is when Linda said goodbye to Bruce so that he could have lunch with Ribu Hui, the wife of singer Samuel Hui. 13th stroke of the clock, we have talked about this. That 13 o'clock could also mean that it did not happen or it happened or another way. At 2 o'clock at this day, Raymond Chow supposedly visit Bruce's home, Crane's Nest, to play in the pagoda picture. They were alone. It's eerie that everyone was gone on the day that he died, because the Lee residence usually had the hustle and bustle that you would expect if two families lived under the same roof of a house that wasn't semi-detached. It was more bustling than a Chinese restaurant. To this very day, Linda can't recount the whereabouts of the butler Wu Negan and his family. A probable scenario is that on July the 19th, Raymond Chow, hinted about the trials not being pleased by the way which Bruce brushed them off. From the video How Bruce Lee Died, The Hidden Truth, a quote, the Chinese mafia movie production companies were losing tons of money. Because Bruce Lee was not only an actor, He was a producer. He had a movie company, Concord, a sub-company with Raymond Chow. He had a contract with Warner Brothers. So he was not dependent on a Chinese production company anymore. Therefore, Warner Brothers would have sold out the Chinese in terms of martial arts then. And so the Chinese mafia, the triads, all these people there, they would have lost tons of money. Yeah. Those that couldn't afford to hire Bruce risk going out of business. Yeah, and the sweat glands has nothing to do with heat stroke because you have other parts of the body. You see that is also mixing in everything here. And a family curse and who spread any rumor first. Bruce shouldn't have made Raymond Chow his permanent partner. Instead, he went ballistic and told Ray that the triads had no sway over him. Ray informed the triads that Bruce wouldn't play ball. Needless to say, they wanted his head to be dead as a form of enough was enough. They knew that they would be screwed financially if he stayed in Hollywood. More box office competition. He wasn't expecting to encounter hooligans equipped with assortment of blades. While some may have encountered an untimely end, Bruce gets mortally wounded because he didn't know how to simultaneously fight multiple opponents, hence his on-screen group fights. Jackie Chan bests him in that arena. This is the opinion of Popcorn Master. And this is the interview of Charles Lowe, a friend and camera man of Enter the Dragon of Bruce Lee, Part 1. He's been called as an Christian friend and cameraman of Bruce Lee. An interesting, rare interview containing important insights on the brevity of life, which is very interesting when you see that these interviews have only a few hundreds hits. It's typical for our world.
Isn't that right?
One commentator, Anthony David, says, Scripture says in Matthew 60:26. Would you like to read it?
Sure. Then Jesus said unto his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life for my sake shall find it. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death, till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom.
Yeah, maybe we will repeat that again, because now the interview is coming and I have made small screen shots of it. Remember, the definite chief aim of Bruce Lee is the 5 times I will, the highest paid Oriental superstar in the United States, not in Hong Kong, not in Japan, but in the United States, which means Hollywood, of course. In the United States. He wanted to make it in the United States. So everybody who comes up with this was the movie that Bruce Lee was going to make in Hong Kong or Malaysia, Korea, Thailand or whatsoever, it does not matter because he said in the United States. Yeah, and that is rebellion. I will have 10 million bucks because, of course, if you want to have 10 million bucks at your disposal, there are some other people who like to have them too. So you will have not only competition, but many enemies. The more you get, the more enemies you will have. If you don't have anything, then you are totally a loser. Nobody is interested in you. But if you got 10 million bucks, you're the target of every gossip. Charles Lowe said, I always ask him to put a Sunday church or to go to Sunday church with me because he says he doesn't do it because if he goes to church, then he misses a lots of penny. And then you know whom Bruce Lee is serving. The mammon.
Mammon.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is not my words, this is the words of Charles Lowe. Death by Misadventure, 1993. Yeah? Bruce Lee told his friend Charles Lowe, I will go to church with you someday when I get rich, when I become a big producer. Meaning, his enemies are not only the triads, but his enemies are only other producers like Raymond Chow, like Runan Shaw and all the alike. Because he wanted to be a producer. He does not want to be an action star, he wanted to produce movies. He wanted to be behind the camera, he wanted to have his own studio, etc. He wanted to make it big time. $10 million. Yeah. When I have a big studio, when I become a millionaire, then I go to church and I said, Charles Lowe said, that would be too old. You would be too old. So first I have the money and then I will be happy. That's the problem with his definite chief aim. If you scroll back, yeah, I will have in my possession $10 million. I will live the way I please and achieve inner harmony and happiness. But before of that, I have to have $10 million. I think we have to copy paste that. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world or $10 million and lose his own soul? Bruce Lee claimed to Charles Lowe, he says, I got a lot of girls and friends and do whatever you want. Yeah, that's Satanism. Do what thou wilt. Aleister Crowley. Many, many other people. Everybody who's having an egoistic view of the world says, well, I do whatever I want. And if I do whatever I want, I will play God, of course, because I decide what's good for me and what's good for you. And there are no limitations and there are no commandments. Yeah? Do whatever you want. And if somebody wants to kill somebody, I can remember of a picture in Bruce Lee's living room or in Bruce Lee's house that says, patience my ass, I'm going to kill somebody. Yeah, but you see, that's the attitude. Do whatever you want. That's not my opinion. That is the testimony of Charles Lowe. Charles Lowe says, yeah, he wants just to be a rich man, and that's what he wants. He wasn't like, no. He was just a happy guy jumping around on Enter the Dragon. But in later times, he was very mad. When he had to take NG, maybe energy, it's hard to understand what he's talking here. Yeah, he was getting very mad. And the interviewer says, would you think that this is caused by the things that he has been eating on Enter the Dragon? And Charles Lowe said, no, he told me he has got a tumor inside his head. We do not know what timeline he is referring to, because, of course, that interview is 20 years later than the death of Bruce Lee. Would have been better if he had been interviewed a few weeks later and not 20 years later. And he says that Bruce Lee has thought that he has got a tumor inside his head. The problem is that we do not know if Bruce Lee and Charles Lowe are not referring to the 10th of May incident when he was been close to death, and then he was just eagerly going and flying to United States of America to have a complete examination, which turned out to be fine, having a body of an 18-year-old. Yeah, so maybe that was only referring to the May 10th incidents. We do not know. That would be most interesting to know when that quote of Bruce Lee was going to him. But you see, these are the problems that you have to extract every information, and if you compare the things, sometimes they don't add up. Yeah, and he says that now he's got a tumor inside his head, and after we finish this film, and most likely because he's the cameraman of Enter the Dragon, which has been finished in end of April, he told Charles Lowe that he has an operation in October, sometime October. Yeah. He wanted to go for operation. They already checked up on the operation, he said, especially on his physical parts. He wanted to show himself strong. Yeah, he wanted to show people that he's strong and not that there's something wrong or weak with him. So Charles Lowe said that Bruce Lee thought he had a tumor inside his brain and he wanted to go for an operation in October. If that is true, or if that is supposed to be true, then maybe he was already a very sick man. We do not know this. But if you push somebody who is already a very sick man, then also a little push by, for example, a little pill or a little hit on the head, is already murder. It does not differ if somebody would die 3 months later or so, but it would be murder anyway. If you shorten the time span of somebody, then it's always murder. So there are many, many points in that interview. He's also told about the coffin leaking up. Some chemicals was split up because he went together with the coffin. And he said that Bruce Lee had great abilities. He jumped 10 feet up and hit pictures and etc. So that is a testimony of Charles Lowe in a nutshell. Friday, July the 20th. It's interesting that this is his death date, given that 20th Century Fox wanted him to return on the silent flute, which he never made. The official story of what happened on that day made it seem that Raymond Chow knew damn well that Bruce was on the verge of death in Betty Tink's Bay apartment, but dragged out the time so that the ambulance wouldn't reach him in time. Even if you believe the official frame of Betty Tink's Bay apartment story, then it is obvious that Raymond Chow is in charge and let it happen on purpose. Even if you believe it, then he's guilty. It's too convenient of Raymond to use George Lazenby as an alibi. The excuse was that the trio was to discuss a game of dead at the Kam Ting Chung restaurant within the Miramar Hotel, where the Fist of Unicorn press conference was previously held. This was a drawaway for Ray to exonerate himself from being involved in the matter. There is a B missing here, which is very interesting because, you soon see why. If you further go down the road with the triads, we come again with Michael Chan Wei-man, the supposed number 2 in the 40K triad. Handcuff is a biographical film about the life of Hong Kong gangster Chen Hui-man, or Michael Chan Hui-man. In the film, he wants to quit the triads and retire to Europe, but the Dons have other ideas. He said in that interview, which we have already quoted in our triad session, let me finish. Joining a triad organization is not a bad thing. Yeah, sure, if you prosper from it, it's all about the money in Hong Kong. The 60s and 70s area, police were gangsters and gangsters were police. That's why you can't expect to have a proper investigation in the case of police or court or where else in Hong Kong. That era was Hong Kong's secret society undercover joining the police force. That's why in the 70s, 80s and 90s there were so many police officers who were also triads. And the other way around, of course. The word triad organization is only used by the Hong Kong government. It's called secret society. That's why they have secrets. Secret societies are patriotic. He said, go to Tsim Sha Tsui, the urban area of southern Kowloon, so the harbor area. That was Chan Wei-man's my territory. Why? Yeah, maybe because the triads, they have something to do with drug trade. And where are the drugs, supposedly in Hong Kong? Yeah, coming in the harbor area. Not in the rich areas, but they are just coming in Hong Kong in the by harbor or by airport. Yeah, but trade is being done for centuries in harbors. So he said, go to Tsim Sha Tsui, urban area of southern Kowloon. That was his territory. His territory. He said, when I collected your protection fee, the police got a cut too. He collected protection fee. That's interesting. And he's supposed to be befriended with Bruce Lee. Interesting. I said, I collect the fees and then I have to pay those plainclothes officers, right? Nightclubs and those kinds of businesses are considered controlled like the entertainment business, like Enter the Dragon business. Yeah, those kinds, we call it Wong, like the color yellow. Dance clubs everywhere, drugs everywhere, prostitution everywhere. Yeah, get up and go eat lunch, finish lunch and then it's evening. I go collect fees here, there and there. And he's an actor. What do you think, that he's sparing out the movie business? He said, it's called Kimberley Road in Tsim Sha Tsui, where the Miramar Hotel is, and that is the exact spot where then Raymond Chow was officially on the evening on the July the 20th to establish himself an alibi with the so-called actor George Lazenby to perform in the Game of Death. According to the story that appeared in the official inquest and was later parroted in Linda Lee's biography of her husband, Bruce Lee went on the last afternoon of his life to the apartment of the Taiwanese sex star Betty Ting Pei to have a meeting with her and Raymond Chow about Game of Death, where Betty was to play a part. Sure. Yeah. During the course of the meeting, Lee developed a severe headache, which caused him to retire to Betty's bed. There he was left by Raymond Chow, who arranged to meet with Lee later in the evening for supper at the Miramar Hotel, with another actor being considered for a part in the film, George Lazenby. And now we translate that back, according to Michael Chan Wei-man triad style. There he was left by Raymond Chow, who arranged to meet with Lee later in the evening for supper at the Kimberley Road in Tsim Sha Tsui, where the Miramar Hotel is, where Michael Chan Wei-man is collecting fees. And now, I don't have any hard time to believe Tom Bleecker in his book Unsettled Matters when he's saying that, the official figures of Way of the Dragon 1972 shot in Rome, they never summed up with so they had two kind of books, and it's most likely that Raymond Chow had to pay off the triads. That is just an opinion, but everybody's free to have his opinion, and that's my opinion. That's why that street, Miramar Hotel, where Raymond Chow is sitting on the evening of the 20s, that street, Kimberley Road, Miramar Hotel, that street is called Chan Wei-man's Street. So when there is one prime suspect in that case, it's Michael Chan Wei-man, because the hotel where is in his district, in his triad district, serves as the alibi location for Raymond Chow. Michael Chan Wei-man says, all my guys are hanging out along the entire street. Yeah, and you can't betray your fans. These are called commandments, secret society commandments, and not the 10 commandments by our almighty Lord, because these people, they believe they are God themselves. Remember Ong Bak in the beginning, that yes, I am God and I decide who to live and who to die. Yeah, and he said, make money is first priority. Yeah, you see that who wants to have a definite chief aim having 10 million bucks? You can't have 10 million bucks in Hong Kong at least without the help of the triads. If you're against the triads, then your producer or your company friend, your colleague Raymond Chow, has to pay off the triads behind your back. It's just an opinion and just my summation of it. In my era, so 60s, 70s, 80s, it was about righteousness. Making money was secondary, and he has to smile about his jokes, I think. Yeah, and his own Porsche has been found in ruins, so burned. Yeah, so you see, you have enemies all over the place. So the Straits Times in Malaysia on 4th of September, so 2 weeks after death, said Bruce Lee died of brain swelling, traces of cannabis found in his stomach. Superstar Bruce Lee dies in Hong Kong. You see sudden collapse at home and death after admission to hospital. Yeah, so collapse at home. Yeah, so they are just lying to you. So, and that's why I think that the entire day is fabricated with the help of triads and Raymond Chow, and Raymond Chow maybe is the originator of the script, who knows. And I don't believe Andrew Morgan and anybody else. I don't have to believe anybody, but I think that has some other backgrounds. Golden Harvest founder Raymond Chow had a connection to the police in the form of a voice actor called Ted Thomas. From Chow's perspective, Ted could be used as a spy since he was moonlighting as a dubbing artist for Golden Harvest. Oh, didn't appear the first incident in the dubbing rooms of Golden Harvest? And Shaw Brothers. On the night that Bruce died, Ted was having dinner with the commissioner of the Hong Kong police. What a coincidence. My. According to his LinkedIn page, Ted was the director of public relations for the Hong Kong police from March 71 to June 73. Oh, that is extremely close to the death of Bruce Lee 1 month later. Then I found another interview of Van Williams, who was playing the Green Hornet in the first American television series of 1966, where Bruce Lee was his sidekick Kato, the martial arts experts from Japan. Kato is the all-knowing one. And he says that on September the 9th, not the 11th, 1966, a star was born. The Green Hornet screens across the country, and Kato, portrayed by Bruce Lee, captured the imagination of viewers. And that is an interview with Van Williams, which I found. And we are just skipping here. This is Bruce Lee in his famous role, which was then portrayed in Hong Kong as the Kato show and not at the Green Hornet. Yeah, so popular he got. And I just skip back to the last page of it. Bruce came over about a month before he died. He evidently had injured himself by doing some stunts, and he was having a problem with migraine headaches. So he was going to UCLA to find out what was wrong with him, and I don't think he ever found out. So Bruce called me, continued Van Williams, and we had lunch. He was crowing a little bit about how big he was with his Rolls Royce and penthouse suit. He never made it to the Rolls Royce, but I think he ordered one. But looking through lines, I don't think Bruce really was happy with all the notoriety. I think he was happy becoming notorious for his kung fu, but I don't think he was happy with what fame brought him. He had a lot of problems. The Chinese mafia approached him about certain things. I don't know what the whole story was, and he had some problems with the press over there, and it was discouraging for him to get to a certain level, and then all sorts of people attacked him for what he did, which was trying to be the absolute best, not as an actor, but as a specialist in martial arts, which I think he was. I don't think anyone could have touched Bruce as far as his ability and fitness were concerned. But Bruce was frustrated in that people were clamoring for him. He was so popular over there he couldn't go anywhere. He liked it at first, but after a while, I think it was beginning to bug him, as it does most people. Bruce finally got to the point at Williams where he didn't enjoy that notoriety at all. He was a worldwide personality and he had no private life left. The only thing he could do was hibernate in his penthouse. Bruce didn't like that, and he was complaining about that before he died. In retrospect, how would Van Williams describe the Little Dragon? The reply is, Bruce had a tremendous amount of loyalty. He and I never had one angry word. I think he respected me for what I did, and I sure respected him for what he did. Of course, the main thing is here, he had a lot of problems. The Chinese mafia approached him about certain things. So you have it here from the interview of Van Williams. 1 month before the demise of Bruce Lee, the Chinese mafia approached him about certain things. I think it's the summary of things, of clues, leave no chance that there was a big threat coming up to Bruce Lee. And Michael Chan says, anybody who wanted to open a nightclub or whatever business in Tsim Sha Tsui, the harbor district, yeah, of course, has to go to him. Yeah, remember when Charles Lowe had been phoned by a reporter, somebody told me Bruce Lee died in a fight. The reporter said, can you confirm? Rumors. Charles Lowe replied with a sinking feeling. It's just rumors. He was beaten up by 10 or 20 people in the Tsim Sha Tsui. The reporter continued, or maybe you already know. You're crazy. You crazy? Tsim Sha Tsui. Ask Michael Chan Wei-man about secret societies. Tsim Sha Tsui. When Linda Lee had an alibi, she was going on shopping with Ryo Hui. She was the wife of a famous Hong Kong actor. And if you then know that there's a brother of him found dead in his residence in Kowloon, Hong Kong, and he was believed to be dead for some time, there are so many things going on. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Her husband has a Cantonese hit, Eiffel Tower Above the Clouds. Eiffel Tower is a Freemason building in Paris, in France. And Hui signed a contract with Gordon Harvest in 1971. So Linda Lee's so-called alibi on the afternoon when he went to shopping with the wife of Sam Hui is interesting, because Sam Hui is also affiliated with Gordon Harvest as well. Hui is closer to his middle brother Ricky, who deceased on 8 November 2011, but interesting enough that it was the 9th of November he found dead, and nobody knows for sure when he died, maybe on the 8th. Huh? The 9th of November would be very interesting, Brett, because in European numerals that would be 9/11. And in December 71, Sam Hui married Ribu Fleming, a Filipino-American. They have 2 sons and lived in Hong Kong. And she is the one who was out on shopping on the 20th of July 1973, if you want to believe it. Gligo Night Driver says, understandably, the Lee marriage was in serious trouble. Besides Linda having become disenchanted with living the repressed life of the typical Oriental consort, many Chinese did not take favorable to her as a Bruce wife because she was Occidental. And Bruce's unpredictable emotional outbursts, his scandalous lifestyle began to take a heavy toll on the Lee household. Every morning, Linda dreaded reading the newspaper for fear of being confronted with the latest headlines of her husband's romantic deviation, his acts of violence, and other escapades. As to the reason behind Raymond Shaw's appearance at Cumberland Road on Bruce Lee's estate that day, the answer is probably known only to Raymond Shaw, Linda Lee, Ribu Hui, Betty Ting, and probably Wu Negan the butler. All things considered, what seems certain is that something went on that day at Cumberland Road that no one wants to talk about, and whatever it is, it would appear that, among other things, 27 years ago, it made Lee's house servant Wu Negan a very rich man. Of course, that is now more than 27 years. That article is quite old. So B. Chan, as known as Billy Chan Woon Gai, he's just said that Bruce Lee simply outshone them. He's coming up with the next theory. He said after the filming was finished, one of them Bruce thought was a friend, came behind Bruce, that he had small heavy metal object that he was holding and hit him over the head. Bruce was turning red, walks away from the cameraman and ended in the open field where chaos was before. They were all waiting for him and started jumping on Bruce, knowing that he was bleeding blood from his forehead. He had a huge blood clot between the neck and shoulder. Bruce was still fighting back, but they all jumped him at the same time and clubbed him to death until they could not move anymore. The guy told me that Raymond Shaw took him to that lady address, home already dead, from the place that the filming took place. He told me everything about the doctors. They were Shaw's doctors. When they clubbed Bruce to death, they had the same sticks they used in the movie. I don't believe that story, but I believe that is most probably that Bruce Lee did not die in Betty Ting's apartment. I can tell you also why there is a third man. Maybe there's a third man needed to transport Bruce's body. What else? The theory of Bay Logan, which we had talked before, that most prolific Hong Kong actor, martial artist, producer, writer, said what is uniform between the May the 10th and the July the 20th incident is that he consumed cannabis on both days. And by logic, he would say almost whatever killed him from an brain swelling at the first incident, that he really died of the same symptoms, and the second time the chances are would have to be the same source or something similar. I believe is that Bruce Lee, he could not walk down to the corner store and say that you give me some pounds of Albanian long grain hash. Whatever it had to be a middle person, and I think that person, whoever it was, and I have some theories, but I don't think I want to say it on camera. So he bought this for him, and it was in some way tainted. The cannabis you consume at Golden Harvest and at Betty Ting place was tainted. Yeah. So they rushed him to the hospital. The first time he almost died, but they got him in time, and the second time because Betty was worried about the scanners, so he's inside the frame, being found in her apartment. Raymond Shaw delayed it, didn't rush to hospital in time. That's the best I can come up with, because he's part of the Hong Kong cinema, of course. Yeah, the best thing that I can come up with is I don't get the entire story. I don't believe the entire story. I do not know what happened. But I know that there are so many errors and omissions in it that it's highly likely that nothing of it is true and that they will hide the real truth for eternity. So how and when Bruce Lee died, from Joseph Cuby. Hawking Chong says, when he was had fame, Bruce Lee, he was a totally different person. He had conquered the world. He still remembered me, but he showed me his power from the hip. He wanted to touch his hip, and he swung his hip to demonstrate the power. When he died, of course, I was really shocked. At that time, they were all showing it all over the television. He wanted to be the best. He was in the movies and also the mafia, and the mental pressure was mounting up. So another testimony of Hawkins Chung about the mafia or the triads. Superstition already, they gave Bruce a female name. William Chung, his companion student and Wing Chun, he says he would always win against the bullies. He was a target for the triads. So I decided to look after Bruce. Yeah, and so the triad, they want to recruit him so they can attract more other little boys to them. So I decided to look after Bruce. You know that his new school was a Saint Francis Xavier, and usually I picked him up so at his mind as a bodyguard and a very close friend because I was looking after him. But after that, he has training from Wing Chun, and that, yes, it was at the end of 1953. This is Bay Logan, which I told you, producer, writer, author. It's very interesting because he has published a book which I cannot get grasp on because it's sold out and it's very hard to get. You can only get it as a Kindle version, and I don't have the ability to do so. He is one of the world's leading Hong Kong film expert in martial arts himself, and he has made a book called Bruce Lee and I. It is very interesting. When close to that book publishing he did, he was accused of sexual misconduct. And I said, that is interesting from the timeline here. Yeah. So he was also accused of sexual conduct. Logan denies any criminal wrongdoing, but admits to mistakes and too careful attitude towards physical encounters with women. I say there's a high probability that he was also put under pressure not to reveal some things in his book, maybe, but it's just my opinion here. Yeah, that's just my opinion. When he wrote that book, Bruce Lee and I, it's so close to the allegations of sexual misconduct. I think maybe I smell something. It could be some coincidence, but you know that I don't believe in coincidences. Yeah. Logan said he was remorseful about his past conduct, but asserted that many of the accusations made against me are either untrue or taken out of context. I categorically deny any criminal wrongdoing. I have never forced myself on a woman. So, all these people who just are telling some stories or so, they are maybe under pressure. Yeah, this is Bay Logan together with Fan Mei Sheng. There are pictures circulating on the internet with Fan Mei Sheng together with Bruce Lee. Yeah, and most people think that Bruce ended up dead. Betty must be the one responsible. I don't think so. So he's also here in that video. What really happened to Tony Jaa? That's the guy from Ong Bak in the beginning, and more with Bay Logan. He starts to tell about in the minute 23 about the story of Bruce was attacked in a children's playground and beating the head and had an edema because of that blow, and then was taken to Betty's apartment. She was paid off, the doctors are paid off, and the hospital has been paid off, and they had to find an hospital, and therefore it has been of negotiating taking place, most likely with the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, and there were people who were then taking the money, and they will come up with any result you would like to have. Yeah, that's not what he's telling, but that's just implying everything. Yeah, I'm not putting any words in anyone's mouth. Yeah, I highly respect Bay Logan, that he is able and willingly talk about that. Yeah, so he said that Fan Mei Sheng had a detailed account And I know what to make of it, but we thought we'd include this thing is really interested in the documentation because there's a very few people from that area. He was a guy, that martial artist Fan Mei Sheng, who is the source from that story. You see him with Bruce Lee at events. He did dubbing for some of Bruce Lee's movie. And this was a kind of nexus between the movie gang and the gang world, the martial arts world. He knew all the police of 1970s. Hong Kong was very like, there was some definitely those circles of activity. And then he was all interconnected. He was a guy, like in the morning of Bruce Lee's death, he could call the gang boss, he could call all these people. In doing so, he came up with the information that I said to him, well, how come you've never told? And that kind of made something of it. He said, no one ever asked me, and we were in Thailand, and then we had a dinner. So he was in Thailand in an interview with Fan Mei Sheng, Bei Logan, and we had a dinner, everybody. And then one of the guys said, how did Bruce Lee die? And then he told the same story again with different slightly details. So I believe he believed it. So this is how and when Bruce Lee died, according to Fan Mei Sheng. Being in the Hong Kong movie industry and being affiliated with police and the trials, according to Bei Logan. In Bei Logan's Bruce Lee and I, this book has been published in 2018, and remember the sexual allegations from 2017. I think that's so close that I knew that he was going to publish a book of Bruce Lee. Maybe somebody said, well, let's put this guy under pressure. Can be, can't be. I don't want to make anything up, but that's my feeling in it. There's something wrong with it. The timeline, you see, it's very close. In Bei Logan's book, Bruce Lee and I, a 2018 book, he recalled dining at a Chinese restaurant with Fan Mei Sheng in 2016. Fan gave him an alternate account as how to Bruce died. Fan had a relative unique standpoint in the Hong Kong cinema of the 1970s, as he was on equally good terms with the police, the gangsters, and the film circle. He remembered being woken by a triad gang boss and asking, why are you calling me so early? This is Bruce Lee, this is Fan Mei Sheng. When Fan was told that Bruce Lee died, he didn't believe it until he saw the newspaper headlines later on that day on July 21st. He then called two high-ranking police inspectors to try and find out what really happened. Fan was told that Bruce and his girlfriend Betty Ting Pei had broken up sometime prior to his death. You see, that would crush the entire official fabrication story. Which causes a problem, since the official story is that Bruce went to Betty's apartment where he supposedly died. Also, there are no photos of Bruce with Betty in 1973 like there were in 1972. You don't have to believe me. You just have to look it up. Yeah, you see, Bruce Lee, Betty, Way of the Dragon, Colosseum, Bruce Lee in Rome. Plenty of pictures, 1972. Yeah, but you see that the pictures of her together with him are clearly in 1972. Here you see Fan Mei Sheng, the informer of Bei Logan, together with Bruce Lee and Michael Chan Wei Man. So you got the 40K Triad, and you know that Fan Mei Sheng is affiliated with Triad as well. Unicorn Chan. Yeah, you see, these people are insiders. In Bruce Lee and I, Bei Logan wrote, on the night of his demise, Lee had been lured to a small children's playground on Tak Hing Street under the pretext of meeting Betty Ting Pei. Once there, which is interesting because at the same time, Fan Mei Sheng said that they had split up. Once there, Lee was set up by metal pole-wielding thugs and was felled by a fatal blow to the back of the head. This is 41 Cumberland Road. This is the home of Bruce Lee, and this is the Tak Hing Street in close to Tsim Sha Tsui. Remember? Miramar Hotel. Remember? Chan Wei Man district. So don't give me that. I think that Michael Chan Wei-man knows absolutely what happened that day. Which is very interesting because that is the Tak Hing Street. And Tak Hing, there is a Kwan Tak Hing, a member of the British Parliament, a Hong Kong martial artist, for the portrayal of the folk hero Wong Fei Hung in 77 films. His real public fame was as a physician who practiced and taught acupuncture, Ditta, and other forms of Chinese traditional medicine. Huh? In 74, Golden Harvest, company of Raymond Shaw, revived the role, pairing Kwan with Sammo Hung in The Skyhawk. And so that means that this is a serial actor, which is then competition for Bruce Lee. And it's very interesting that it happened in the Tak Hing Street, when there is a famous guy who is a competition for Bruce Lee. In Bay Logan's audio commentary for the film The Magnificent Butcher, he states that though there is a grave marker to Kwan Tak Hing in Kowloon territory, his ashes were already taken to San Francisco to rest with those of his second wife. My. San Francisco. Must be a coincidence. Kwan became so associated with the major Wong Fei Hung that other filmmakers would only portray the character as a younger person, including Jackie Chan in The Drunk Master. That's the Magnificent Butcher, Kwan Tak Hing. Dragon or Snake, 1979. In the 36 Styles interview from Bay Logan directly with Michael Chan Wei-man, 40K Riot, Bay Logan asks, later when you were both working in films, did you train together with Bruce Lee? The reply from Chan Wei-man, we didn't train as such, but I'd often visit him at his apartment in Waterloo Road and later at his house in Kowloon Tong. I'd see all his training equipment. We'd compare theories in fighting. Bruce was the most popular kung fu actor. I was already the best known fighter in Hong Kong and I was getting into a lot of street fights at the time. Back then, if you worked in kung fu movies and you went into Tsim Sha Tsui, his district, at night, yeah, remember here? Talk secret societies, go to Tsim Sha Tsui. That was Chan Wei-man's territory, his triad territory. So, if you worked in kung fu movies, like Bruce Lee, and if you went out to Tsim Sha Tsui, East at night, like according to Fan Mei Shang, happened in July 1973, Bruce Lee went to Tsim Sha Tsui, East at night, according to Fan Mei Shang. Bruce has made a number of enemies that night, as well as a number of followers. You see, Hong Kong playgrounds, interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's the thing that recently came up. They've discovered 1 minute of unseen footage, and I could imagine myself that anyone who had been affiliated with the death of Bruce Lee, how it ever occurred, would have some movie material about it. I can't imagine that having such an action that it has not been photographed at least. Okay. Fang Mei-shed said, after he had arrived, they were planning to attack him from behind. They were hiding in the playground with metal sticks in order to ambush him, which is very odd because in that movie of Jackie Chan is threatened by thugs with metal poles as well on a children's playground, you see. This is Jackie Chan. But it's 50 years later, so I tried to look for that playground on Google Maps, but I could not find it. I could find it a little bit off that street in One Cox Street. I found a playground, but who knows what has built in 50 years, yeah? It's interesting, it's a church in here, which made a smile on my face, but apparently this playground, I don't think that is 50 years old, so I do not know where that playground must be and if that story is authentic. Back to Bay Logan's Bruce book. Fan Mei Shang's version of the story is skipped to when Bruce was admitted to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Remark, it should be obvious why not to the Baptist, because of course they had negotiations with the authorities of what to declare with Bruce Lee coming in, and maybe also some blackmails or T-money involved, who knows. Bruce's filmmaking partners didn't want to propagate the story that the world's greatest martial arts hero was defeated by a common street punk, so a senior medical official with personal connections to the film industry was offered Hong Kong dollars 300,000, which equivalent would be in US states money divided to 7, about close to $40,000 or $50,000, to cover up the existence of Lee's head injury and come up with the widely held hypersensitivity theory of equagesic, which only could be Mr. Donald Tier. Donald Tier, a senior British pathologist, he carried out the autopsy on Bruce Lee because they have flown him from Scotland Yard, because of course Hong Kong at that time, 73, was a British administrative region or under British occupation, so to speak. Tier also supervised the autopsy of Brian Epstein, Beatles manager, and he died, the Beatles manager, of alcohol and barbiturate overdose, ruled as accidental at the age of 32. Bruce Lee's age exactly when he was dying. These are the Beatles. And barbiturate overdose in Brian Epstein's, the manager of the Beatles case, is the same as in the acute barbiturate poisoning injection or overdose in the case of Marilyn Monroe. Remember who was it on Marilyn Monroe? That was this Japanese guy who did also the autopsy of Sharon Tate. Marilyn Monroe found dead. It looks like suicide, yeah. Wanna bet? She died on an overdose of chloral hydrate. At the funeral of Over the Rainbow was performed Wizard of Oz. She played an important role in announcing the JFK ritual. Yeah, the song for her, Candle in the Wind, was used by Elton John after the Diana car crash ritual in Paris, in that tunnel. Which is very interesting, because chloral hydrate is also one of the theories in the case of Bruce Lee. And chloral hydrate is also from Russia with Love, 1963, James Bond as the agent of killing, or the poisonous thing that killed the spy in that movie of James Bond. Chloral hydrate, huh? My. Yeah, and that's the same thing with Thomas Noguchi. That's the coroner of stars Marilyn Monroe, Robert Kennedy, Sharon Tate, Janis Joplin. Question: how many autopsies are forged in the case of Thomas Noguchi? The coroner to the stars is his nickname. Yeah, can you imagine that when there is a senior pathologist being sent out by the officials in Great Britain, and then of course he would overrule all other authorities because he is supreme authority. He is the senior pathologist. Yeah, like in the case of Sharon Tate. Yeah, you know what we are thinking about the autopsy of Sharon Tate today, huh? Yeah. That's the problem with it. Yeah? You do not question the authorities. Don't question them. Don't question the authorities. And we will go later into the case of Donald Tier in the next session, of course. But we will have to finish this here. So, blinding someone with science. If there is a senior pathologist, he will overrule everything. You can blind the audience with science to confuse them by the use of big words or complex explanation, simply just by a title. In Fan Mei Sheng's story of Bruce's death, he claimed that some men came up to Bruce to organize a meetup up some street near a playground. What hurt fans' credibility is that he didn't name the individuals. He was only willing to say that they were from a triad. He didn't even name the triad. However, the only triads that Bruce would have trusted to be his co-stars from Game of Death and his only stuntman. Chances are big that he is an insider. Sure he is. Fang Mei Shen, who visited the Way of the Dragon in Rome, there where Chow introduced Betty Ting Pei to Bruce. He was also a member of the 40K Triad. Yeah, so that's why he came up with Tsim Sha Tsui, because that was the Triad district of 40K of Michael Chan Wei-man. In a question and answer session held on the Bruce Lee Lies Forum back in 2019, Bay Logan elaborated about Fan by saying he did mention other things that I didn't use in the books. For example, he gave details on why he believes Bruce had already broken up with Betty Ting Pei sometime before the night of his death. It involves a leading Hong Kong jockey of that era. Yeah, so see the timeline. In 2017, he was being accused, Bay Logan, of sexual misconduct. What was very evident to Bay Logan was that Fan genuinely believed what he was saying. Later, then they were on location on Bangkok to make Steven Seagal's Attrition. Fan told the same story but with slightly different details, making it seem more like an actual event from his memory rather than a tale that he had cooked up to the entertain of an interviewer. Personally, I believe the story because varying incarnations of the ambush have materialized in several martial arts movies, including Jackie Chan's Police Story 2 and several 70 movies in the Bruceploitation genre, not necessarily movies about Bruce Lee's life. Even Sammo Hung had recreated the scenario in Skinny Tiger, Fatty Dragon, a 1990 movie where Sammo plays a detective who fights like Bruce Lee using the nunchakus here. Yeah, you see metal poles once again. In 2018, regarding Fias Rafik's Bruce Lee conversation helped to elaborate on Fan Mei Sheng's version of events. William Chong said he actually died 2 days before the newspaper published his death. Yeah, so 21 minus 2 is the 19th, not the 20th. That's why I also think that all this 20 of July Raymond Chow Betty Ting Pei's apartment is a total fabrication. The doctor who went to Betty's apartment, his son was training with me. I went to talk to Dr. Chu and he told me that when we went to the apartment, Bruce was already dead. Sure, he was. But in Hong Kong, they needed 2 doctors to write a death certificate, so they called the ambulance and bribed the ambulance and hospital. So it took hours for the ambulance to run around and eventually they negotiated and paid. So they let the hospital say that he was dead on arrival. Bruce was registered on the death register in the hospital as Lee Jun-fan, so nobody knew Bruce was dead. After almost 48 hours, the journalist looked up in the hospital the name and the time and found Bruce Lee. Then people knew about his death. The autopsy was done after 48 hours. You see, days after the death occurred, the autopsy was done. I believe William, due to a 1973 newspaper clipping that was posted on the Kung Fu Fandom forum. The police were quoted as saying that Bruce died on a Thursday night. Officially, he died on a Friday night. Yeah, because they had to put in the letter of Bruce, the forged, most likely forged letter of Bruce to the attorney Adrian Marshall to set Linda as the official owner of Bruce Lee's residence and belongings. Yeah. But it was only reported in print on the ensuing Saturday. As for why it wasn't common news locally, the clipping was taken from an English newspaper based in Hong Kong. Despite being a city, there were many newspapers reporting his death. Under such a flurry of hysteria, it's natural for the truth to be buried. Although the truth was printed 2 days later, it was known by an innocent party on the day in between. In the 1993 documentary titled Death by Misadventure, one of Bruce's cameramen, Charles Lowe, had an anecdote that contradicted the official story's timeline. Basically, Bruce was long gone by the time that it was 6:30 on July the 20th, yet the official story is that he was still alive when he went to sleep on Betty's bed at 7:30 p.m. Charles Lowe recalled waiting for Bruce to show up in a restaurant at 6:30. You know the story. He found Bruce's residence and was surprised to hear an unfamiliar voice on the receiving end. The identified man told Charles that Bruce wasn't home because something happened. The man hung up the phone. Charles went to Bruce's house, where the only people that he saw were 4 of his stuntmen and his son Brandon, who would later become the co-star of Crow. Yeah, and you know that end of the story here. So I'll make a shortcut. Thanks to the press, they wouldn't say anything. So remember to save face. Remember that the safe face means that if the trials would let Bruce go, then they would have they would not save their face, because nobody would take them serious anymore. A quote from George Orwell's book 1984. George Orwell was a Secret Service man who wrote a book not with foresight but with insider knowledge. He said, "The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command." So people, they get the truth from the television. They don't use their eyes and ears. And I'm just presenting you so much sources here, so much witnesses that you can make up your own mind if you believe in a single exegesic tablet. in summary, I would say we have been framed as there is a script. The writer is still to be announced. And the script name is Game of Death, and that is not the movie of Bruce Lee. That is the cause and the surroundings and all the things that happened to finalize in the demise of Bruce Lee. And one of the directors must be Raymond Chow, of his CIA ties and his triad ties, being the producer and having controlled Linda Lee and controlling Betty Ting Pei. Yeah, one of the actresses is Betty Ting Pei, and who knows who's also from the hospital has to act because of being taken pressure by triads, blackmailing and all the stuff. Yeah, so the Queen Elizabeth Hospital serves only, in my humble opinion, as a second unit. Yeah, so they had to take all the necessary actions to declare him dead, and they had to fill out the death certificate and all the official papers. Yeah, and the company who's behind it also has to be announced, because it's not only Golden Harvest. You don't think that Golden Harvest or some triads, they are powerful enough to hide such a tremendous case of a megastar in Hong Kong, when also this Hong Kong is. We will come up to this soon. By the way, according to Bay Logan's 2018 book, Bruce Lee and I, Wu Nagan, Bruce Butler, called Samu to inform him that Bruce had died. And who were these stuntmen? Yeah, you see, there are several possibilities how anybody can sustain a brain edema. Washing the official autopsies completely aside, we have recent cases of 2019 from a Russian boxer called Maxim Dadashev. So this 28-year boxer died to cerebral edema. Same case or similar case is a 26-year-old boxer 10 days after sustaining a severe brain injury during a fight. So you can also die from that brain edema days after some attacks had happened. The boxing scene reported that Saikan died after suffering a cerebral edema or swelling of the brain under 2 weeks after his most recent match, an 8-round knockout defeat to Igor Semetin in Russia. Can you imagine? This happened on the 7th of January 2022. Yeah? So that's not that long ago. How many other unreported deaths in mixed martial arts or illegal comités there are? Or in illegal street fights? Boxer dies after suffering traumatic brain injury in fight. Boxer dies after punching invisible opponent. Boxer Patrick Day dies after suffering serious brain injury. How many? So this would be my source of questioning, but of course he will never come up with a real story because it is his district and he's tried, so he ought to know. He says Bruce Lee kicks Chan Wei-man's fist, but who would win in the fight if we really fight each other? Yeah, we will have to go for a real fight to find out. And maybe he wanted to find out. Yeah? The 14K trial dominated Vice and Tsim Sha Tsui before the handover of Hong Kong. Yeah, these are the sweat glands removed because he was sweating, but it has nothing to do with his death. If you don't believe me, maybe you believe Jackie Chan in his autobiography, 1998, Pressure from the Triads. I am Jackie Chan. Thousands of triad members were killed and the rest were driven into hiding Hong Kong. That was long ago. Enter the Dragon, he said his name was Bruce Lee. In the years he lived, he hit Hong Kong's film industry like an earthquake, yeah. And he took away much money of the triads, of course. I am Jackie Chan. And he's quoting the incident of the knife attack of Bruce Lee to Lo Wei. He said about Bruce Lee, he brought the martial arts movie to the attention of the world, and without him, I don't think that anyone would ever heard of Jackie Chan. Where he admits that Bruce was, he was using wires in Fist of Fury, which was very interesting, a harness around his body of, I will show that in that video. He told us Lou and Bruce had parted ways in a very hostile manner. The papers, always hungry for good gossip, printed rumors that Bruce had threatened to kill Lowe with a knife. Yes. He said, I was surprised to hear that Lowe has divorced Leah Luyenga, the former actress who had worked as a production manager of many of Lowe's films. Interesting, huh? That these directors also are affiliated or married with actresses. Oh, my. You see, triads in his book. Yeah, it's all over triads here. The head of Triad Boy looked at me and, like I was an idiot, an action movie. Yeah, he must do. Yeah, to please the triads. An action movie. There's a problem with the triads, which is actually our biggest problem, as I'm sure you've noticed. Page 300. Jimmy is going to try a broker a peace agreement between the Sun Yeong, that's a triad group we're dealing with, Low Wei and Golden Harvest. If he succeeds, we are off the hook. If he fails, it really doesn't matter because you won't be around to find out. That's Jackie Chan. Yeah? But every conspiracy theory is about the triad's involvement is just pure conspiracy speculation. Sure. He said, I'd even face down triad gangsters. There's also here in Business Insider an article, Jackie Chan investigated for taking on triad gangs with guns and grenades. He said, they opened fire at me once I got off the aeroplane. I do not know if that is also authentic. He said, I needed to carry a gun every day when I went out. Isn't that sounding familiar with Bruce Lee case?
Yeah. Right.
The 58-year-old actor said he had to confront a gang of 20 members, one with guns, when the group surrounded him with knives at Hong Kong eatery. I confronted them with 2 guns and 6 grenades, he said, without saying when the incident occurred or how it ended. Associated Press. Chan's guns and grenades comments published in the main and Chinese Southern People Weekly magazine were largely overlooked last week. The actor said 20 gang members armed with machetes or knives once surrounded him at dinner. I pulled out a gun and I had 2 more concealed. I told them they had been going too far and I had been hiding from them. Later on I confronted them with 2 guns and 6 grenades. Illegal weapon possessions carries a potential 14 years prison term in Hong Kong. Yeah, but the China Morning Post says, oh no, there was no allegation towards Jackie Chan because these allegations would have to be proof that the guns were real. Aha. Yeah. So it's no wonder that Tom Bleecker once wrote that interesting fiction novel about T-money. T-money means bribery. And it depicts us in a hidden kind of way a deceased international Asian megastar whose death was ruled as an accident, and a former street reporter battles a powerful Asian crime syndicate when he discovers that the celebrity was murdered and that his widow, under the threat of death, speaking of course, has become an accomplice in the murder cover-up and the victim of extortion. Although Bleecker has many non-fiction books, including the Bruce Lee story that he co-wrote with Lee widow Linda Lee. Yeah, you know that, no? Tom Bleecker, by the way, is his mentor is Blake Edwards, which put a smile on my face because Blake Edwards was the producer of A Shot in the Dark. Yeah, a murder in Strange Bullet, huh? And if you know our Kennedy conspiracy series, then you know why I had to laugh. No? The correct answer of Kennedy should be caliber 22. At not Mannlicher Kakano. But that's only just for the insights. No, it was also not a 25, except the fact that it was a special bullet. Yeah, and Tom Bleecker was writing television and film for Blake Edwards in 15 years. Also for William Shatner, which means then Star Trek. And he has made several interesting books about martial arts. One of them being T-Money. Curtis Singh is the equivalent of Raymond Chow in that fictional book. Yeah? And ask yourself, how could he establish his own production company, Golden Harvest, against Run Shaw without the help of the triads? And when he then has a director called Lo Wei, who's the head of a triad. Come on. It's not that hard, huh? when he's official officer of the British Empire, or actually was. So, in the case, which we then will move on in the next session, you have so many holes in it that the court does not want to investigate who was the third man in the apartment. And according to the doorman, Bruce and Ray arrived at Beverly Heights at 3 o'clock. Yeah. Is there any name of the doorman? Was the doorman testifying? No, of course not. A doorman with no name. Not a horse with no name, but a doorman with no name. Come on. There are so many holes in it. There are so many holes in it. There's always holes. Yeah? After the 20th July incident, if that ever happened, Betty Pay went with Charles, which is affiliated to the Triads, to the Philippines to star in a film called Evidence. Oh, yeah, Evidence. They got married in 76, yes. And I think it's clear that Game of Death maybe would not have ever been finished, because Bruce said it was halfway done, and he wanted to go back to America, to the United States. He wanted to make it in the United States, not in Hong Kong. The footage, which we have been found to be 3,048 meters, is close to 111 minutes, so it means that the majority of the movie already had been shot. And there is much more which is hidden in some vault in the Golden Harvest. Bruce didn't need to talk to Ray about supposedly incomplete script on the day of his death. If he wanted to be Betty Pay in it, she would be in it. Bruce is the one who's directing his own films. Come on. Does not have to have the approval, at least when he's going back to the United States. His son Brandon Lee has been quoted as saying that there wasn't much left of Game of Death, which is then God, Game of Death, before his father died. He would know, since there are photos of himself on the set. Game of Death. Yeah, so there are sets of takes. Yeah, who will really see that how many shots have been made. Yeah, but people, of course, said that maybe Bruce has forgotten his date with Charles. Yeah, and so, but nevertheless, Charles says that he was at 6:30 as the residence of Bruce Lee, and the stuntman said that I don't think that he will ever come back. So he was dead at 6:30 on that day. So everything else is a fabrication. It's a fabrication. Yeah. These Triads knew that Bruce was going to take stuntmen, go back to the United States or Italy, to Bruce's own company. Yeah, but where to start? Yeah. There are 4 stuntmen, which is very interesting, because in the Tower of Death, in 1984, there are 4 corpse guards here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So everything can be in a small hint. So we do not know when happened what, when he got a tumor. Charles Lowe is telling this Shay Kin, his opponent in Enter the Dragon, he says his spine was injured in the past, infection reached his brain. His sister said this. But if he did not had a natural death, then it's a murder. Yeah, it doesn't matter if somebody is 90 years old or 32. And key thing is here, Charles Lowe, 6:30. He's not home. Something happened. He's not home. Something happened. Maybe some accident. Yeah, he does some exercise, and maybe he fell down, broke his ankle, something like this. I didn't even know that it was so serious. I went to his house after I hung up the phone. They were so sad, and they don't want to tell anything. They don't want to tell anything, and one of these students says, I don't think so he will come back. They already noticed. That was the time they already noticed Bruce is gone. So, if there is an operation or an edema or what else occurred, I do not know, but you can force also something to proceed. Linda never filed charges for gross negligence. Same is this case of Jacqueline Kennedy, huh?
Yeah.
Ray has spent 20 minutes driving over to Beverly Heights through a typhoon called Dorothy. Dorothy, take me back to Kansas. This is a summary of the season summary of July. This is the typhoon.dot. Sorry. So you have to question everything they tell you. The typhoon in Greek mythology. The deadly monster Typhoon was trapped under the mountain Etna by Zeus. Ray has slapped Bruce around and shaken him violently for several minutes. I'm sure that someone with a bleak streak of humor would say that it symbolized how Ray's misconduct was a slap in the face. Failing to awake him, he calls Betty's personal physician. The line is busy. You don't want to believe all the stuff, huh? Doesn't that remind you of the story of Manson? Sure, Queen Elizabeth Hospital, the biggest hospital, and I can only think that, wasn't the Queen Elizabeth Hospital quite down near Tsim Sha Tsui? Not from Beverly Heights to Baptist Hospital. No, that would be too easy. No, from Beverly Heights to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, not to Baptist, which would be 0.6 miles. Yeah. But to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, more than 3 miles, sure. My. Huh? 3 minutes compared to 19 minutes. Wow. But if somebody has no breath and no pulse for 10 minutes, then another 10 minutes, another 19 minutes or 16 minutes difference does not make any. The hospital was the largest one in the Commonwealth. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So because you see that the senior pathologist like Dr. Donald Tare would only perform in the biggest hospital in the Commonwealth, right? My. So, do you remember from one of the first sessions when Jackie San said, he died in somebody's house, my boss got to pick him up? No. He died in somebody's house, but not necessarily in Betty Tink's place. So he's not wrong. Maybe he died outside. Nobody knows. Maybe he died outside. Nobody knows. Yeah. People speculate that it took so long because Bruce was naked. In recent years, Betty confirmed that they did have an affair. Yeah, but not in 73, most likely. It doesn't help matters that her self-teaching BDSM has been conjectured as to why he had experienced submucosal hemorrhages in the rectum. It was more likely because of Spanish fly. And here we are in the room of speculation. It will never end because there are numerous possibilities. Numerous. And I've lost my script. I lost it. Oh yeah. Next time. Next time. That would be a feast. A feast day.
Coming up soon.
Yes, and that's my end of it. I'm sorry, I have to make a break a little bit, eat and drink, and take a deep breath of all this lies. You see, it's constantly lies. I'm really glad when we are done with the Bruce Lee sessions.
You do that, Michael. Yeah, you've worked really hard to put this together, and over how many years? I mean, this is one of your first scripts, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
A long time. And here we are. We're finally in it. And, the whole thing with Bruce Lee has to do with acting. And biblically speaking, when we're speaking of actors, this goes all the way back to Greece again. No surprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the masks? Masks. Putting on the mask. Becoming the hypocrite. Very first mention of hypocrites in the Bible is in Job chapter 15. And it says here, Job 15:32. Thanks, Michael. It shall be accomplished before his time, and his branch shall not be green. He shall shake off his unripe grape as the vine, and cast off his flower as the olive. For the congregation of hypocrites shall be desolate, and fire shall consume the tabernacle of bribery. They conceive mischief, and bring forth vanity, and their belly prepareth deceit. So, yeah, Michael, we can see that all this industry that Bruce Lee has got himself involved with, going to that Francis Xavier school and all that, yeah, he really didn't comprehend what his Christian friend was trying to introduce to him. It's just a damn shame. But that's so typical, isn't it? Maybe I'll go to church after I get famous. Yeah, I'll go then, after I make my $100 billion.
Let me look for it. Yeah. Okay, let's do this. Yeah, the problem is also he goes on Sunday to church, so he's most likely also not.
Well, yeah, but look. The question is, who's got salvation? Who's the plan for salvation? Once you start, you start. This is the thing I have, Michael. I'm not the kind of guy. I know it's really important to be very specific, but when you first start out, you're starting out as a newborn believer. You might not have that much faith. But the Lord shows you things in due season, and you grow as you become more familiar with Scripture, as Scripture brings you into that realm that you haven't been before. You slowly become more accustomed to God's ways and less accustomed to man's ways. You see, we're well into our 50s now, but we're talking about like Bruce Lee was in his 30s. He could have turned things around if he would have given more time to the Scriptures. Yeah, as it says here, what you have in the screen, Matthew 16:26. For what is it profit? For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Yeah, you can't give anything if you don't understand to begin with. Deception is just, it's so overwhelming, isn't it? At least the God of this world is. I think Bruce Lee is only proving that point, isn't he, Michael? Yeah. It's just overwhelming. It's overwhelming. You get so consumed with the women and all the things you can have and all of this and all of that, and in the end it's not worth anything at all. You're just miserable. Like that interview with the fella, I forget his name now, that not an interview, but he did was it a book you were reading from, Michael, where he was saying that Bruce Lee was not at all happy with he had to complain about being shacked up in his mansion or whatever all day long. Couldn't go anywhere. Everyone knew who he was, and then they wanted to fight him probably too. Yeah. What a mess. Yeah, Bruce Lee is a real mess, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a total mess. It's a total fabrication, in my humble opinion.
Well, so are the movies, though, too. So
yes.
That's the Satanic Media Agenda. Is we're confronted with lies everywhere we go, and you cannot escape from it if you don't know what lies in the history of the church. And we're talking about the harlot church as well as the true church of Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's a tough one, man. But the truth of the matter is that you don't get anywhere with your studies if you don't submit yourself to everything. You don't submit all that you have. If you submit part of what you have, then if you don't even submit at all, that's Bruce Lee. Never submitted. Made himself into a god. What can you expect? What can you expect? It's like, I don't know. Well, we say he was building an empire, Michael, so he became Caesar. And Caesar was murdered. There was a conspiracy. And, of course they're going to try and cover it up. And they have. And we've been deceived, Michael, over and over and over again. We've been deceived. Question is, dear listener, do you wish to still be deceived? When clearly, if you just submit more time to really get a clear grasp on the history and everything that has been surrounded around your whole life, you can figure it out. It's all a bunch of lies. The liar is in charge of this world. He's not going to tell you the truth unless you wrestle with him, right, Michael?
I'm really glad when this is over, because all these lies, you see, it's so. I really hope that this will have some effect on somebody, that he really sees that it has absolutely no foundation in this world. Truth has no foundation in this world. It's all a bunch of lies, actors, and everybody is in for his own profit. That's it. Wait, what you will never guess what's coming up next. It's beyond all imaginations, but hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Michael. We hope to see everyone back in that next session, God willing. The internet is still up and we're around. We will see. Only God knows. See you then. Bye-bye.